that it? Nah, I think you guys are just making stuff up. What is happening, everybody? It is Friday. TGI freaking F. What's going on, everybody? Hattie, it's me. We got no Jen. Jen has to chaperone the prom tonight at her high school. Completely forgot about that. So what is up? Drek,
Well,
Dathar, Shaklagor, what's going on? Dathar, 20
legs
freaking
and
months, my
pollute
friend. Are you
britches with
kidding?
delight.
Are you kidding? Can you just start with bad dad jokes as Resurrected Hobbyist coming in with 17 months on the heels there? Thank you guys so much. Get that hype going
Never
early
forget,
and often.
There's no muscle
Tier 2
stronger
sub, my friend.
than the
Thank
human
you.
heart.
What about the wiener?
I think the wiener's
guy
stronger
on
than
TV
the heart.
lifted a can of paint with his.
Can of
Yes.
paint. Shaklagor, what's going on? Telemachus, I see you hanging out there. What's going on, Kev Rob? Welcome back, everybody. Gonna wait for Kenny's crew to get over here, and we will get kicked off. Ready to head off into the weekend. We got some stuffs. They finally hit. If you were watching on our social media yesterday, there was some calamity involved with the new brushes, and the sort of calamity that involves FedEx dropping the ball tremendously and causing us a lot of pain. So the order took a hit from the factory as far as getting all the brushes here, but we got quite a bit. We've got sets up on the web now over on the store. We've already had a lot of sales come through with a lot of people waiting there clicking refresh, which is awesome. Thank you guys and gals so much for that. We've seen a lot of orders come through already for the deck cords, but these be they, folks. These be they. I don't even think that's the right way to say that. These are the new brushes, though. So the deck cords are here in all of their glory. So this is a brand new set that I'm taking out of the package. I'm going to paint with them tonight. And this is the first time that I will be using them from the production set. The only thing that I've been using up to date has been the prototypes. So I'm excited. I'm always excited when we get new brushes, right? Because I'm like, oh, I get to use them. I'm just like you guys. I'm like, I just want to like touch and feel them and, and like revel in how cool they are. I'm digging them. Resurrected, you started reading a book. I'm not even reading that. I'm not even reading that. I'm not reading it. You can't force me. You cannot force me. So yeah, these are the new brushes. They have, if I can put them in the right order here, there's a 1, there's a 0, there's a 00, a 000, and what we call our X10, which is a hair smaller than your normal 10-aught brush and shorter, so that it has a lot more control. Now that's of course going to mean that the amount of time you can leave paint on it is like next to nil, right? But you can see what we've done here. A lot of times what companies will do with their very, very small detail liners and such is make them longer so that they can get to that tiny point. But what you'll see with ours here, if you look at all the rest of them, you've got the same ferrule across the board until you get to the X10, where the ferrule is a good like 3/16 of an inch longer, so that it can taper even further, so that we actually start with the smallest bundle possible to get us to that fine detail. I'm not, you can see it next to my finger, but you have no idea how big my fingers are. Do I have a coin? Is there a coin someplace around here? I feel like I can get a coin. Is it a penny? Holy hell, there's a penny. So that's a penny. To give you an idea of how small that X10 actually is, right? It'd paint his Lincoln's nose hairs with the X10 there on a penny. And then of course the 000, 000, 0, and 1 are to finish out the set. And you can see how the ferrule on the 1, as you get into bigger brushes, is a little bit longer, but it's not even as long as the ferrule. Its overall diameter is bigger to handle more hair. But this strong taper on the X10 allows us to do short bristles instead of the long bristles that normally will start to splay. So I'm really, really stoked on this brush set. This is awesome. Resurrected, I refuse to read anything you post. you people. You people. So anyway, them's how that works. And I am going to start doing some painting using these. I think, as always clean them before you use. They do come with shaping starch on them. So fresh out of the gates, I'm going to clean that off. Get my soap. Don't have to do a real brisk cleaning on them. All I'm really trying to do is make sure that any of the cornstarch, the shaping starch that's in there, gets all the way out. I don't want any hiding in the ferrule that will reactivate once the brush dries when I put it down for the night, and then, you know, come back to it tomorrow, and of course you're back to rigid starch again, which is good for telling the brushes how to behave, but once you've started using them, you want to stay away from it if at all possible. So I'm just going to run through these real quick. Again, yes, they're brand new. You still want to clean them. Make sure I'm not twisting them. Still getting a, I mean, it's hard to not get a superior point on a brush that is so small, but still. Oh, the conversations about tiny balls. My tiny ball conversations are all over the internet. It's so funny. It really is hilarious. Like, I wake up some days and go, and there's already like a conversation about somebody asking about glass paint agitators on the web in Reddit or on Facebook, and people are already talking about Jason's tiny balls. Famous for all the wrong reasons. My mother would be so proud. Don't need a lot of soap for this. I'm just pulling out enough to make sure I get all that shaving starch out of there. Again, these are synthetics. These are not true sables. They're synthetic sables that we have come up with the factory. And really, really good as far as holding their point, shape, and everything. That one's a little, that one's like beyond sharp. Like that brush, that's insane on the tip. And then the X10. The brush you'll use like 10 times in your life, but each one of those 10 times is the most important time that you need a brush like this. Not a brush you'll use every day. Maybe. Depends on what you're painting. But definitely the brush you want to have in your arsenal. All right, put soap up. Take my hand off. Throw that away. Another one. Gags, what's going on? Long time, man. How are you? Drago, what's happening? Okay, so my goal tonight is to start finding the way the non-metallic silver wants to live on our Doma bust. So I'm going to start plugging away at that. Like I forgot to clean one of my other brushes after the show the other night. A not good thing. We're going to need to clean that again real quick so I can use it. What was I doing? Oh, I was doing the red, wasn't I? On the, we were glazing red on the gas can for that dust tank, weren't we? Somehow that got put away in a sad state. We will bring this back to life real quick. I am going to do something I don't show you very much, which is agitate it at a fairly steep angle because it's got a lot of dried paint in the bristle ends. You can see just by how pink the paint or the soap on my hand is turning. I just literally set this brush aside when we went to a whip gallery on Wednesday, looks like, and didn't even bother cleaning it even a little bit. Look at this. Yeah, I don't think I cleaned anything out of that brush. Shame on you. Uncle Fuse. Do as I say, don't do as I do. Big old chunks of paint coming out. All right, that's why we make soap. I'm going to go ahead and fan these bristles out real quick. Make sure I don't have any chunks of paint dried in the tips. There is still a little bit in there. Pull it out using my fingernail. Not pressing real hard here, but just hard enough to kind of fan the bristle out. Like that. Basically just squeezing it between my fingers to fan it out and get any of the excess paint out of there. And then one more time with the soap. Very good. Soap's not turning so pink this time. Back to no. I like it. All right, now we can get going. Doka, what's going on? Casino Reads, what's happening? Now the new brushes come in after you put in an order. Do you have an order sitting in the store, or did it already ship to you? Do you know? If you'd like to get some, just shoot me an email, and I can send you a PayPal invoice to add them to it on the same shipping that you already paid, so you don't get double dinged for shipping. If you've got an order that you placed like this morning before the brushes got announced. Dano, what's happening? G-Man, you've seen my fingerprints in the post office? You're not supposed to say that out loud, friend. What did I pay you the $20 for? Come on now. Come on now. Get with the program. All right, so what I'm going to be doing tonight is starting off with how I want to do this kind of cold steel look around the border of this roughed end gold non-metallic that we got. I'm kind of liking where the gold is headed, but I want to get a few more bright spots on it. But before I do that, I want to start setting up the silver, not silver, kind of like black iron or something I'm going for. I don't know. I never give it names. Just want it to be more bluish black, more dark than light to offset how bright the gold is, right? So I'm going to start in with a signal blue, a really, really dark blue to frame all of this shoulder trim in. Right.
I've got 2 kinds of wet in my pants.
2 kinds? What is the second kind of wet, Kenny? It's Kenny. What's happening, everybody? Welcome to the Next Level Painting crew, which is pretty much all of our crew. Welcome, everybody. It is Friday. I am Jason. Jen is not with us tonight. Jen has got prom for her school tonight, so she will be doing that whole thing. And I am going to probably break out of here a little early to go meet up with her at that thing for a little bit. Chaperone the crazy high school kids. But what is happening? In the meantime, we'll paint and have some fun. I was just showing off all of the new brushes for those of you that may not know, if you don't follow us on Facebook, or if you had not been on Facebook today and did not hear about it or see the calamity yesterday. We had some issues yesterday with FedEx and the new product shipment coming in. But all that is, well, it's not cleared up, but we have product in the store. So the det cords are available now. I got them up on the store. They are available in both singles and sets. I got them both available all at the same time. So that should be good. We've already had a tremendous amount of people that must have been sleeping there on the refresh button who have gone in and purchased theirs already. So thank you so much for the early support. Remember that the code for the Adepticon stuff is still running. The Adepticon 17 code is still good for those of you that may not have been able to catch brushes at Adepticon, where we sold out. You can still use that code for 15% off over on the store until further notice, pretty much, because I'm going to wait and hold that code to be good all the way through until we get long wicks. The sable should be in either at the end of next week by Friday's show, or the beginning of the following week after that. I'll have more updates. The update as of this afternoon was that end of next week sounded good, but we'll wait and see what happens. There's always a chance that things go awry, so I never like to promise until they're in my hands. But det cords, on the other hand, are here. Again, I'm just using signal blue here. I'm just going to rough in some of this dark steel look that I'm going for on this trim of the shoulder pad. And I always like to set up with my darkest color first. That way I can set up my dark reflections, and then I'll work into my brighter zones and then blend them back and forth. There'll be a lot of tug of war going on between light and dark as I work through this stuff.
Well, huzzah, huzzah!
As
just
per
throw back my
normal.
legs and pollute my britches with delight.
Who dat? Kenny, 19 freaking months. It's almost like you've been here from the beginning. Who'd have thunk? Feel like you missed a month. How did you miss a month? It's supposed to be 20 months. How's that a thing? This is a bust from Chimera Models. For those of you that might not know, might not have been hanging out with us while we've been painting it. I did a tutorial on this guy for how to be prepping a model for uplighting, meaning, you know, lighting from below. But I primed him over for Kingdom Con this last weekend down in San Diego to paint. I've been painting him exclusively with our new synthetic Kolinsky brushes. That's what this is that I have in my hand, is a fake sable that we are coming out with. It's the same stuff that our det cords that just launched today are made out of, albeit the det cords are very, very small, fine pointed brushes. So the det cord set, I'll show you again for those of you that are new and just showed up. These are available over in the store as of right now. I got them on a couple hours ago, right during Kenny's stream. I announced it. So 00000X10. So I'll show you guys again what you're looking at as far as sizes on the det cords. It is a super detail set. Right? It is made for all of that insane small detail work that we do, whether it be texturing or dotting eyes, you name it. That's what you're going to find these are good for. So if I lay down a penny to give you an idea of what we're talking about, on the far right is the X10, which is a hair smaller than a 10-aught. And as you can see, I was telling everybody before the show, you can see by the length of the ferrule, we extended the ferrule so that it tapers down to the exact diameter of the bundle size that we wanted. So we didn't have to make that a very long brush. I like those ultra tiny brushes to be really short as well, so they maintain their flexibility, and you're basically loading paint into technically about the fattest part of the brush. There's not a lot of meat on that brush, so it's not going to hold your paint wet for long, but it'll help holding it a little longer that way. And then you've got, from the left, you've got your size 1, a 0, double 0, triple 0, and then, of course, the X10. So made for primarily all of your texturing work, your final detailing, edge highlighting, fine shading, the kind of stuff that Kenny was showing you today, working on that orc. As he likes to go in under the muscles and really sharpen up his contrast with his dark shadows. This is going to be the brush that replaces that low Cornell piece of garbage that he uses all the time. So he's got a care package coming. We made these specially for you, Kenny. Specially for you. So those are available on the store. But the key to these is the brand new type of hair that we've developed for it, which is a synthetic Kolinsky sable. We're calling it synthetic Kolinsky because if you know about sables, the differentiation of Kolinsky that sets it apart and makes people really want it for painting with thin paints is its elasticity. It has a really good snap back to its point without being overly plastic in the way that it springs. So it's not going to sling paint everywhere, but when you're painting with very thin paint, it's very, very...
my legs and pollute my britches with delight.
Oakley Brave, 20 freaking months, my friend, thank you. It's really imperative that your brush can snap back to holding that point after every stroke so that you can do continually very, very thin, fine lines. Kolinsky does that the best in the world in natural hair brushes, pretty much. And so we've developed a synthetic that basically will do the same thing. It snaps back, has a great elasticity to it, and will hold paint and offload paint in the same way. So we're really stoked with that. Plus it's a synthetic, so it should by all means last longer when taken care of. You're still going to want to wash it and treat it right. But the brush that you'll see me using today is the same hair. It's just one of our prototypes for larger brushes. We are going to be coming out with I think we'll do it as a small set of 3. Normally our sets are 5 brushes, like the deck cords I just showed you. But we may
pollute my britches with delight.
Dano, 16 freaking months. Thank you guys. Much appreciated. Let's get some hype in the channel. Exclamation point hype for all of those that may not have our emotes. If you do have our emotes, just spit emotes out all over the place. Hype it up for these guys and gals, continuing their support, helping the channel out, getting those emotes, joining us every day, having some fun, telling some bad jokes, watching paint dry. That's our steez around here. But I'm thinking I might do a set of 3 brushes that would be the number 2, 3, and 4 of this hair to follow up after the det cords. I'm discussing that right now on what makes the most sense. So I'll have an update for you here pretty quick, and I would assume that by June I've got those, maybe quicker. Depends. I really enjoyed painting with them on this guy. This whole bust has been done with nothing but those synthetics. So everything that you see, all of the glazing that I've done, all of the muscles, all of the malachite, the stones on his neck, all of the stippling and everything that we've done here has been done with these synthetics. And that's not the kind of job that you would typically assume that you could get out of a synthetic without a lot of overtime and thinking about every brush stroke. And I haven't had to think about it at all. I've treated these exactly like I would with any brush that I use. Light and Passion, what's happening? He's like, no Jen, out of here. Well, thanks. Still one more name, what's happening? What's up, Bill Neary? Is there an ETA for the drop-a bottle racks? Kev Rob, I am still waiting on the recut prototypes to show up. I had to go with another cutter. Our local guy is screwing the pooch, so unfortunately he can't keep up, can't seem to get his act together, and that's left me in a lurch, left you guys without product. So I've got another set. I was expecting them in this week. I'm hoping that I'll see them by the beginning of next week. Cross his fingers. I'll let you guys know. As soon as they get here, all I have to do is verify that this factory knows what they're doing. I put them together. I got 4 of each type coming, so I'll know very quickly after I slap them together and make sure they all pop together and work like they're intended to work. And that includes all of the new designs as well, like the corner rack, the GW bottle rack, all the things that I've been talking about all through April and March will finally come to fruition as soon as I get those prototypes and assuming they all work. Wolfsart, what's happening? Shinkai got a question. I've never seen you use washes. Is that right? Is it because you're brushing and watery paint technique? You'll see me use washes rarely, but I do. I really like the Flesh Wash from Army Painter. I will use it to darken in eye sockets on small miniatures sometimes. But yeah, I don't use a lot of wash. I use Nuln Oil over metallics to get that nice grungy kind of darkness to them when I'm doing silvers especially. But those are kind of the only times. You've seen me on stream over other metallics like gold and copper metallics use like an Agrax Earthshade or a Reichland Flesh Shade, kind of a brownie red wash over gold metallics. So for me, washes are kind of a thing that I will primarily reserve for use on basing and terrain materials. They work really great for me there. Metallics, I love them on metallics, and sometimes on flesh, just depending on the scale of the model and what I'm looking to do and how quick I'm looking to do it. I love washes. I love the effect that they give. I feel like it is it's easier for me to get the same effect using regular paint. So even though we don't technically pick up a bottle that says it's a wash, a lot of what I do tends to have the same effect. I'm more pinpoint with my placement of paint than a wash allows you to be, I guess is the way to say it. But yeah, I use them. Just not very much. It's not very much. Gag, you think I'm a better teacher than your art teacher? Don't tell them that. They don't like that. Don't tell them that. Art professors don't like to be told that there are other people that are better at art than they are. Kenny, thank you. Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with this guy. Like I said, I just primed over him for Kingdom Con. I just shot him over with Badger Primer again from where we had him on the original go-round. And now we're just kind of focused in on setting up all the non-metallic, getting basically our colors and values set. You'll find that if you watch me paint for very long, I will leave various aspects of the model in kind of a 75%, 60 to 75% done spot for quite a while as I figure out the rest of the model. I rarely ever go into a model with a whole plan. I knew on this guy that when I reprimed him, I knew I wanted to do this kind of, I didn't know it was called Malachite. Thank you to Drago in stream when she was down at Kingdom Con telling me that this stone that I've done is Malachite. But I knew the stone look that I wanted. I wanted to do this green kind of semi-transparent. Gapamus, thank you so much for the follow. Right, I wanted to do this kind of semi-translucent stone effect on this guy. So I've done, with all of my greens, given it that kind of, you can imagine if you shined a flashlight on it that you could see through it almost or see the veining in deep. So I knew I wanted to do that when I set out. So I chose a very gray-green skin backdrop for that, which, believe it or not, that's what that skin tone is. But with the bright green of the necklace, it sinks it more into the grays than the greens. And then, obviously, my purple hues on top of the green. For my shadows, there's also a lot of brown in there. You can see that halo of dark brown in all of my shadows and where I haven't done the purples. So we've done a lot of work on this guy so far. We've still got a lot to go. But like I said, I leave everything in kind of that 75% range until I get, all the rest of my values set. So right now we're dealing with what will be some of the brightest parts of the model in our non-metallic golds and silvers. And so I want to block all that in and get a feel for how it's going to act before I start brightening up the skin, before I choose my horn color, before I choose all these bone colors and all that kind of stuff. I want to see how this is going to work. So that's what we're going to focus on tonight over on this side. Ashriel, thank you so much for the support. Enjoy them. Path default looks like Jade. Yeah, I would have thought like Jade. I don't think Jade has the same marbling to it though. From what she was Drago was showing me of Malachite. I don't know. I don't care. I never set off with I want this to be this. Sometimes we do in stream. We'll talk about it. We'll be like, you know what I want? I want it to look like ebony.
Hey, somebody
but typically, I'm trying more to just go with a color or a vision that I've got in my head of a thing that I'm seeing, whether it's reality or not. I'm not as concerned. Thank you so much for the follow. Thank you, Gapamus. Good to see you. Right now, I'm just kind of splotching this dark blue around to set up my dark reflections for my metallics. And again, I'll change this a million times by the time we're all finished here. Most likely. This is the time on the model where you get to kind of play around. See what you like, see what works. Goof. Yeah, because I think I want to hit like just this side of the, you have this sharp edge on the shoulder trim here that you don't have on the gold pad itself. It's all round and this very convex pattern and multiple radii. So I'm playing around with how I want my brightness to sit on that. I'm not done. I want more brightness down in here, I think. But here I want to do the bulk of brightness on this side of this shine so it matches up kind of with what I've got going on here. And then I'll dump this off into darkness real quick and then pick up shine right here with darkness up here. We'll play around with it and see what we can find out. I'm going to take a little bit of Spaceship Exterior, which is a very, very bright gray from Army Painter, and start mixing it with this Signal Blue to get my midtones. There's probably a color in my rack that would do just as well, but I'm going to go ahead and mix these just to have the flexibility in front of me. This Signal Blue is a really, really cool blue overall. I'm really digging it. Been using it for a lot of stuff lately. It was a paint I never paid attention to before, and then I just found it a few months ago, and now anytime I'm going to blue, I'm kind of starting with it. And it's been working fantastic because it's super dark and really, really flexible if you want to start adding white to it to tint it up. It doesn't break and get powdery real quick. You know, a lot of colors when you start tinting them with white get to be that obnoxious baby blue real quick in the terms of blue, or they become powder pinks if you add, you know, to red and stuff. So we find ourselves being fairly careful as we go through all that. But with this blue, I'm really enjoying it, and I can do stuff like the Spaceship Exterior to it without even worrying. What I've done is just add a little bit of that Spaceship Exterior to it right now to brighten it up here. This corner over here to be brighter. Again, I'm pulling from where I've got my darker blue, my darker reflections, into where I want them to be brighter. In some cases, overwriting all of my dark blue entirely, which is okay. I'll come back to it and darken it back up. Like I said, it's kind of like a tug of war or a teeter-totter. I keep going back and forth from bright to dark, and I'll do that a bunch of times throughout the life of the model until I'm satisfied with how the value is set up on it. And this I plan to have some fun with, because with this bright gold sitting next to this dark steel that I'm going to be doing, I can throw a little bit of the gold reflection into this kind of dark iron that I want to build up on the shoulder. I'll have some fun with that. Here. As always, I'm painting super, super thin here so that it does the work of blending into those adjacent areas without me having to do a whole lot of brush technique, right? I can use really loose strokes, and I'm not going to get, you know, a really heavy line at the end of any of this. It just kind of all starts falling in together with that dark blue. So that even though I'm technically playing around and I'm not trying to set anything in stone right now, it allows me to do so without laying a lot of texture on the model. Because I know that if I have to come back in here and do this same area 2 or 3 times to get it right, you know, I don't want to have that build up that much paint. A lot of what I'm doing is I've got these bright streaks that are starting to form on the edges, and of course this big one in the center of the gold. So I want to kind of follow those where I can, so I start kind of lightening this area up around here. I'll start building up paint. Over here, same thing. Kind of right in this area, so it goes along with what's I've got going on the gold. Even though I'm not 100% on the gold right now.
Somebody likes us.
We'll at least start playing that way. All right. Text me the address. Thank you for that follow. And path default, this is the model called Doma, D-U-M-A-H. It is from Chimera Models. He is now, the only thing I know, they don't make their own game. There is a Doma from Legacy of Kain, the video game, and I don't know if this is harkens to that, like, you know, the demon vampire from Legacy of Kain, the ancient, but it might be. There are some iterations of him that aren't just the bust form where he's in like full armor and he looks kind of like that. The only thing that throws me off is the horns that are kind of like, you know, the demon from Legend, which is kind of funky, but I dig it. Great bust. Got just enough of the right detail in the right areas to be really cool. Got armor, skin, lots of skin, all the things that scare you. Big plates of armor, big open areas of skin. It's a great model. Again, I'll try to find some brightness right in here along this top area. I've got this darkness here on the gold that I will shove across onto the steel as well, because most of this is all at the same height or level or whatever you want to call it. Probably right in here, which may change the way my gold looks, because this would be the right spot to have a little bit of shine on this steel. Again, this is why I'm always jumping in and saying, okay, well, it may turn into something different than what I was expecting. Because as I go make the determination for how the shape of this outside part of the shoulder guard looks, it can guide me to new things and new situations for the gold that I already did on the inset. Keep brightening up, layering up with more thin paint. Especially up along in this area where I know I want this corner that kind of pokes out to get brighter. And right in this area where it'll be the brightest, I think. Notice as I build up, we keep getting brighter and brighter, but then I fall off into this darkness. Now, the thing that I'll have to play around with a little bit is this side is steepled on this trim, so it'll go to darkness here, and it kind of then modulates from what I've got on the gold. I've got brightness against darkness, so I may want to change that a little bit, right? I may want to bring this dark band up a little bit over here, and then brighten down in this area more to match, so I don't just have this real dark band running into real brightness here on the gold. So I'll probably have to shift the shape of this a little bit as I'm looking at it. For anybody who's just tuning in, who might not know the paint, the kind of style that I paint in, obviously I paint in a lot of really, really thin layers, as you can hopefully see. And just kind of control the opacity of the paint as I work by doing so. So it's almost like doing digital coloring. I'm just putting different filter layers over subsequent layers of paint or previous layers of paint, so that each one will drive it closer to its final color, but it also blends really well with everything down low, right? So you'll see how you don't really catch any areas, no matter how I'm looking at where the paint kind of starts and stops, except for where I've got extreme transitions. Everything else will blend really nicely and start getting me closer and closer to where I'm looking to be. I'm thinking I want to get pretty bright right around here again. And I'm mixing as I go, using Signal Blue from Vallejo Model Air and Spaceship Exterior from the Army Painter right now. I want kind of right in here. Start hitting this with a little bit brighter. Again, these brushes keep proving to me that they are definitely the right brush for the job. These are going to be a new set of brushes from us that are the same material, like I was saying earlier, that the det cords are, the synthetic Kolinsky. But if you're noticing, I'm being able to take this very, very thin paint with a synthetic brush, and I'm being able to glaze pretty much with the tip of the brush. Like right in here, I'm using the tip of the brush to do this, and I'm not picking up a lot of texture. Being able to control the pressure on the brush just like I would with a sable to blend it very nicely, so I'm not getting a lot of hair thin, even though it's a pretty decent sized detail tip. I'm not getting that kind of hairline fracture texture that I would normally get with a synthetic as I do those brush strokes.
Hey, somebody likes us.
True Llama, what's going on? Thank you so much for that follow. Normally, my partner Jen is here on Fridays, but like I said earlier, if you weren't here or missed it, she has got to chaperone the high school prom where she is assistant principal. So, won't be joining us tonight, unfortunately. I lose such track of time, you know. Well, it's not like it's been long since I was in high school. I mean, come on, geez. It was only like a year or two ago that I graduated high school, right? Kappa. And that's starting to size up the way I'm thinking it should. I want this to be a very, very cold, like dark iron. So I'm not going very bright with it. I'll keep pushing a little bit of brightness on it. But I want it to be really dark so that the gold really pops out against it. Finding myself wanting more out of this area right in here. is right over the upper area of this. That's weird because we have all these angles that change on us, right? So we go from where we're kind of flat and horizontal in areas like that on the armor to where I've got this long expanse now that's thin that would shine up across this top area, but would also have this, carry this reflection down through here. So I'm going to have to just kind of blend top to bottom. And through that. Same thing here. Kind of just grab the top of this point. Still want this darkness to live through here as well. So it's probably going to be like right here, right up against our brightness. Translate through the gold and then hit right here. And then off the other side a little bit maybe. Again, I'm just playing. It's rare that you'll find a time when you attack a model and get it right the first time, right? You might be like, oh, I have an idea. But it's going to take you a moment when you're playing with all of these angles, all of this contrast and lighting that you're looking to get out of something that's supposed to be metallic. So that's why we take the time to come in and do this. I call it blocking in. But I'm sure there's a technical term for it that is actually better than that. Counts, what's going on? Thank you so much for the follow. We're starting to get there, at least on this forward side. I'm starting to see it. Start doing the back side as well. Shikai says, I'm starting to see a lot of merit in the thin paint that I do. You're nowhere near getting the full hang of it, but you're trying. You like the off black effect that the technique lives, which shows a better gradient of tones. Going to take you a long time to get good at it, though. It is a practice thing. And it's funny, talking to artists who, at various stages of their miniature painting or just painting in general career, and there are people that, have been fine art trained who would say that the technique that I use is not good, that you should try to stay away from painting thin and in layers and get used to using thick paint. That's a very like fine art centrist approach. When you're working on canvases and stuff, the thick paint is a lot better in most situations because it'll give you that texture and that feel that you're looking for. When you're working in miniature and most of the texture is already on the model, kind of a different world for me. So it kind of over the years, I've been doing this for, I always say 38, but now I'm getting older. So it's probably, we'll still say 38 years on and off that I've been doing this. And in that time, I've been able to play around with a lot of different techniques. And this is just the one that stuck for me. But Bill Neary, 3 months. Thank you, my friend. Didn't we do this last week? I feel like maybe we did. Thorum Bloodskull, what is going on? Drinking Sinatra Jack Daniels and smoking a Partagas. Is that a cigar? Glad you could join us, Thorgrim. But this is just what works for me. I try to show people the benefit of working with thin layered paints so that you understand the control that you can have. If you can translate that control that you get in layering into other techniques and look for that specific thing, being able to control your value, being able to control the opacity of the paint. You can do that with thick paints. There's lots of people out there that wet blend and two brush blend, do fantastic with it. There's lots of people out there that add very, very little thinner to their paints at any point in time at all. They just use thick artist acrylics. A lot of people use oils and don't thin them at all. So there's probably as many techniques for painting as there are artists, and all of them are correct if they make you comfortable and confident in your painting. I will help you with any of them. You just find that, you'll see the way that I like to paint most of the time, and it's what you see in front of you, because I get the results that I enjoy out of it. But there are lots of other styles that I can do and have used over the years that get me good results. So, the long and short of it is do what feels comfortable. And don't ever try to rush it. If you feel like, you really like the way models, turn out when using the kind of technique you see me do or the technique you see Kenny do or any of that, but for some reason it's not working for you, right? Don't push it. Don't feel like you got to force yourself. There's never a time that it is, hey, if you don't have this in 6 months, then give up. You're awful. That's not the way art works, right? Sometimes it doesn't click for years. Sometimes you go and you find something else that really works, and then you come back 10 years later and you find that, oh my God, that guy that told me that thing was really right. I love that now that I see it. When I first got introduced to non-metallic metal work, around the age of the first age of confrontation, they were kind of the ones that first showed us the light of non-metallics as a miniature company that was readily visible. I won't say available, because Confrontation wasn't always the most available set of models in the world, but they were visible. They were in the magazines. They were, in the fledgling days of the internet, they were all over the internet. Now they're coming back. They're kickstarting Confrontation, OG Confrontation again, which is kind of cool. But with all of that, I really was, I was put off by it more because I couldn't do it than anything else, because it was a very, very frustrating technique. And I'm not a fine artist. I wasn't trained in art class. As a matter of fact, my bragging rights in life is that the only claim to fame I really have with regard to art school is those are the only classes I ever failed. In all of school, for me, those are the only classes I ever failed were art.
Hey, somebody likes us.
Never feel bad if you don't feel like you're getting it the first time around, right? Thank you so much for that follow. Troll the Gamer, what's going on? But I came back to it years later after I got more comfortable, and found kind of the painting, I guess, style or technique that really fit me as I started layering. And then I came back and revisited the whole, non-metallic thing in the early 2000s and really started liking it. And it all started to make more sense to me. But, again, that's just the thing that some people it never takes hold of. Some people don't like it, and that's fine. Some people don't like layer painting. They just like to, use very, very opaque paints, and that's fine too. There is no right and wrong. It's art. That's the great thing. I believe in art for the artist. I mean, I love when we can all sit around and enjoy each other's art, but I am a big fan of art for the artist. I do my art so that I like it. I do my art so, I choose my colors for what I want to see on the model. I know it bums people out sometimes when they want to have me commission work for them, and I'm like, I don't take your color scheme. I don't let you order up Chinese menu style how you want your models to look. That's not how I paint. I look at a model and I let it say, hey, I think this should look really good like this. Not saying that I haven't painted a lot of models in the color that people want it, but hopefully you get my drift. My goal is to paint the way I would enjoy thinking of the model in front of me. Again, I'm just using white and signal blue and just blending them at various levels. Add a little bit more white, get a little bit of brighter color. Whenever you're blocking in your especially non-metallics, I find that just picking two colors and blocking in works a lot better than trying to do all 7 or 8 colors that you're going to wind up having on your model at the end of the day. My golds might be 11 colors in my golds by the time we're all done with this. But rather than trying to pick all 11 of those colors and roll with it from the get-go, I've done burnt umber, golden brown. I think I used 4 colors to block these in. Ivory, yellow ochre, golden brown, and burnt umber. And burnt umber just base coated. So, not a whole lot of that. But in a case like this where I know I just want this to be like a dark steel, I don't have to do much more than just the blue and the signal blue and the spaceship exterior and just mix them as I need. I'll get to damn near all ends of the spectrum. I have to come back with a little bit of black. I know. to darken my blue up where I need it to be even darker. But as it sits right now, just using these two colors is letting me kind of get the idea on the model and not have to worry too much and go through too much pain to figure it all out. So that's starting to show up, and it's blocking in really nice over here. This is looking good. It just is throwing me off the way it is right up against this. So I'm gonna have to darken in this area coming, right out here off of this steeple on the shoulder. I'm gonna have to put a dark reflection at least coming out a little bit like this on the gold to tell why this is here. Because this I really want to keep. I could brighten this up, to match this. But I want to keep this bright edge on the shoulder plate going into this dark edge because that really sells the metallic nature of everything. But now it's kind of disjointed with the gold, so I'll have to change the gold a little bit and darken it through here. And basically move this dark spot up to here and brighten this down here is my goal. Best laid plans, right? We'll see how all this works. I talk a good game, but we'll see if I can actually do it. I want a little bit of brightness right here as well. I'm going to go bright, dark, bright real quick on the shoulder here because I've got this kind of good bright area here. And I'm going to pick up this brightness off the gold right down here as well. Maybe not quite as bright. Maybe leave it like a medium brightness compared to the other. Play around with it and see. Right, so I'll go bright, real bright here. So we'll pump up more of our gray in here and brighten this and this up along here. And then right in here, it'll go dark, and then it'll go bright again right here, and then it'll fall off to dark again and bright again. So we'll have a lot of alteration in color as we go down this trim because of its angle, right? So like I want right here to be pretty bright because that's facing our light source, which is just overhead directly, this flat spot. Then it's also going to be right in here. And you'll notice I knock off a bunch of the color so that I can dim it, right? I can control the value of my color when I paint this thin by just reducing the amount of paint that goes on the model, right? Because I'm letting more of that dark blue show up the less paint I put on the surface. So if I take more off on my finger, less paint can reach the model, and then I can blend that around a lot better. You'll see me do that all the time. Hence the reason my finger is whatever color. You can always tell what color I've been painting. Just look at my hand. You miss Legacy of Kain? It was a great series, man. I think that's where this guy was from, but I don't know. Is this some kind of bust? Genuine, what is going on, man? Good to see you. Happy week. It's Friday. Korea boy. Hey, Jan, how happy are you about the freaking handshake between North and South Korea over the DMZ? I feel like that's a big deal, man. A lot of people don't seem to be paying attention to it, but I feel like that's a big deal. Spiky Bits, aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper? It's just TV, man. TV makes me look like that. Armin's Wrath. So have you seen everything regarding Brand Chauvelar, the 12-year-old boy who fell in love with the Space Wolves of 40K? Yes, the boy who just passed away recently, right? And they're doing a character in a story, a Space Wolf story for him, I believe, right? I do believe, yes. It's so amazing to see the community pull together about that stuff. I got a little misty-eyed when I was reading about that poor kid. Fist, you still can't do non-metallic, but you understand a tiny bit more every day you spend battling call. Yeah, exactly. Well, and your stuff was looking really good on Wednesday when we saw it. For sure. You're getting much better every time you touch a paint to the model, for sure. Darkness, what's going on, man? Good to see you. Thorgrim Bloodskull, Kenny, Les Bursley, and me taught you all you need to know about painter, or all you know about painting. That's awesome. There's so much good information out there right now. It's so good. So good. So good. I'm so jealous, to be honest, of people that get to turn on the YouTubes and get to go find awesome stuff all the time. That's so awesome. True. I don't know how to pronounce your name, man, but welcome from Brazil. I probably just butchered your name and I apologize. I'm horrible like that. Welcome from Brazil. We are in Arizona here in the United States, where it's 1,000,000 degrees every day. Trump Jr., D. Trump Jr. Greetings from Germany. Thank you, my friend. Again, greetings from Arizona. Welcome. Thorn Bloodskull, been at WOCS, fill you in on his brand kid. I think he was suffering from leukemia or some form of cancer? He was battling for a while and he finally passed away. And the community pulled together, the Warhammer community pulled together. They're creating a character named for him in a Space Wolf story, I believe. All sorts of great stuff that the community is pulling together for that guy. Brand's Great Company, I think, is if you search that on Facebook, I think you'll find out about it. Lando, what's going on? Plugging right along. Paint drying up like nobody's business. Jen not here to tell me if I'm on or off camera. What is the world? Cats and dogs living together. End of the world type stuff. And again, I am painting the bust of Doma, D-U-M-A-H, from Chimera Models. Don't ask me who Doma is. I said that my stab at it is he's the ancient vampire lord from Legacy of Kain, but I could be very wrong about that. I'm not real sure. Right? But this is where he's at. I've worked a lot on the skin and the face. I haven't done anything with his lips. His lips won't be purple, but I haven't figured out what I want to do with them yet. I'm probably going to add a little bit of blue to them, but it depends on what. The lips are so close to the metallics over here, I didn't want to choose colors on a lot of the facial stuff until I get this big area, because like I said, these metallics will be super bright on the model at the end of the day, and I want to make sure that I've got all that colored the way I want, and that it works well with the greens and the grayish greens of the skin. So until all that's set in stone, I never finish, quote unquote, finish any part of the model. I get it kind of, like I said earlier, about 75% of the way there, and then just kind of work on things next to it until I'm comfortable with the whole deal. So that's what we doing. Well, that's what we doing. That's what we doing. Notice how I will bring my strokes from where I have darker expectations, like down here. I want this to be darker. I'll bring the brush stroke up this way. where I want the paint to start lightening up right around in here. And then I will turn around from this direction and do the same thing. I know I want it darker down in here for a split second, so I'll bring the brush this way. And I just have to be careful in that area where they join, because I will get paint pushing back and forth and back, and it can build up and be kind of clumpy there in the middle. So sometimes you'll see me knock paint off and then just kind of stipple it, kind of dab it so it blends together in that area. Whatever you got to do to just make sure you don't build a lot of paint, because you're moving the brush in two directions towards that same center line, and you can, every time you lift the brush, stroke and lift, you leave paint there. And so if you stroke lift this way, stroke lift this way in the middle, you'll leave a drop of paint. And if it dries, it can give texture or be the wrong brightness. So again, just clean your brush off, stipple that droplet around, and it'll smooth itself out. It'll be fine. Notice how it's leaving that droplet of paint down there. So I'll clean some of the wetness off of my brush and then come push that droplet of paint around so that I spread it out a little bit. It'll coffee stain like a wash stain if you just leave it sitting there too long. That kind of stuff I want to avoid at all costs. That's starting to look good on that side too. Notice how I'm not cranking my blue up quite as bright through this stuff. I want to leave it a little bit dimmer than on the front, because the front of the model is what we look at the most, right? But because this is, it's an entire project, you got to pay attention everywhere. But I'm going to leave this in kind of muted color more so, and maybe not go quite as bright on all these areas in the back. I don't know, we'll play with it. All right, now I'm going to add a little bit more of the gray. We're going to go brighter so we get out of this kind of dull blue. Not ready to go just white yet. I'm having fun. Sometimes you'll notice when you are blocking colors in like this, no matter if you're doing it for non-metallics or you're doing it for, just blending colors, you'll find that you start to like what you're building up, and so you might then start tuning it a little bit more. I've started blending this a little bit more instead of just rough blocking, because I'm kind of digging where it's going. Feel like I'm on the right track. So when that's the case, I'll then make the determination, do I, go through those, mid steps, start blending my colors a little bit more subtly, so on and so forth. So now I'm going to go a little bit brighter, but not jump straight to white like I might do normally. Catch this edge. And then start blending this brighter color up towards the peak of the shoulder here.
Hey, somebody likes us.
Hey! Insert, what's going on? Thank you so much for that follow. Welcome to Friday night. My name is Jason, also known as Slow Fuse. Hope you are enjoying your stay. Notice how I'm leaving this, there's a crack in the armor right up here. See that? So I'm leaving that dark. Notice I'm not nailing that with bright paint as I go. Anytime I get a detail like that where I feel like I want to make sure I leave that where it's visible, I'm going to go ahead and take the time right now to make sure that I don't blend too much light color into it. Grab another paintbrush real quick. thin this line out here.
Hey, somebody likes us.
Too much. Christopher, what is happening? Welcome. Thank you for that. Hope the week is ending well for everybody. Or for those of you that have a busy working weekend, I hope that it is starting off well for you. I love Fridays. It's the let the hair down day. You can kind of hope for some relaxation over the next couple of days, hopefully. Although it's that time of the year, right, when like yard work starts to be a thing. I feel like that's a thing. I don't do yard work very well. Me and the yard are not friends. No, basically I'm just going through all these areas and looking at where I want to see that brightness that I already kind of laid out and pumping it up even brighter in certain spots. So like just in kind of the crux of this point and then up to the point. Again, I said I want to just have this be bright right along this top edge.
Well, huzzah, huzzah. I'll just throw back my
I'll
legs
edge
and
it, but
pollute
then I'll
my
kind of
britches
give
with
it this
delight.
V-shaped. Thank you so much. Who dat? Richter Scale Studios. What? 20 freaking months? Thank you, my friend. How has life been treating you? Richter Scale has been, if you follow him on Instagram and all that good stuff, he's been doing quite a bit with 3D printing of terrain and crazy stuff. I know he's jumped hard into the Legion deal. Are you actually playing Legion with all that work? Or is that a commission? Or what's... I've been seeing all sorts of crazy stuff with terrain. Again, I want to kind of come in and stipple a little V shape in that. Now's where I really start playing. Because now I'm just going to start kind of blocking in these rough highlight spots. Squidge the line there to give it a little bit of blend.
Well, huzzah, huzzah. I'll just throw back my legs and pollute my
Max
britches
27,
with delight.
16 freaking months of subs. Let's get some hype in chat for these guys and gals. Thank you so much. Mucho apreciado. Not even words. Hopefully you can see, like as you get brighter and brighter and brighter, right? As long as you restrict that brightness, don't overtake your midtones and your darkness too much, you really start getting the feel of shine. Doesn't have to necessarily be, metallics that you're painting. This could be any hard reflective surface. We showed the other night doing it for something like a coated ceramic, I think was the term that we used. Grab another paintbrush, kind of do some two brush work here. Although Dallas Kemp would yell at me, he would say that's not really too brushwork, but whatever. Pittsville tonight. And I want to, a little bit, if I've got paint left, I'm going to go a little bit down here. Almost just a little line of brightness on that one. And the same thing over here. I don't want too much. I just want to find a spot where I can notice how I bring my paintbrush up and it drops off the bulk of paint along that line almost. And that gives me that shine. And so now I found this kind of cool shine that comes across here that I can then blend into this gold line that I've already set up here. I'll bring that brightness up a bit. Like I said, this is the fun time where you get to play. You get to, just kind of test things out. You can say, hey, how bright do I want to do something? Do I want a shock of reflection in an area, and play with it and see what happens? Because if you're working thin, again, one of the reasons that I say thin layering is the key to all of this, because it allows you to be a little bit more fearless. I can go in and try these things that you see me doing, and if I don't like one, then I can simply layer right back over it, and it doesn't even matter. Because there's not enough texture being put on the model to make too much of a difference. All right, so we're starting to find it. It's starting to show up.
Somebody likes us.
Bucketastic, great freaking name. Welcome. What is happening? Glad to have you. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to push straight to spaceship exterior. Again, we're using this has been our mixer. Rather than go to white, because I don't know that I want to use that much white on this. I'm not looking for it to be mirror finish on the outside, like dark iron that I'm going for. We'll see. And I'm not going to mix much blue into this next step at all. It'll still be kind of a, well, yeah, it still will be. That blue is very powerful. So it still will be a little bit of a pale blue, but definitely a lot brighter than what we've done so far. I'm like, and it won't be hardly blue at all, but just one little paintbrush tip worth of blue influences this gray so much that I'm a liar now. Great. Now I've lied to the people. And here I am looking for a little bit of texture. So I'm looking to keep my brush pointed. And if I can get in. Because this metal looks like it's kind of beat up. So I'm okay with now, as I go brighter, trying to find a little bit of texture in this. If I can work a little bit thicker and be a little looser with my brush stroke, so it looks like this edge is kind of dinged and dented, because the shine won't be a straight line. Still using this horizontal brush stroke to get my highlight on, as opposed to pulling a line right down the peak, right? We could do this and brighten that up, but then it gets to a point where, you are pulling a straight line. And so your lack of texture will almost defeat some of the rest of the model. So I'm going to continue to try to keep my highlight coming horizontal so that texture lays in there. Thing down here. Or I keep on screen here. Grab that edge first. Out from underneath the shadow of the horn there. Where that edge kind of hits my center, my brightness. Bring that out. So here, catch this top edge.
Well, huzzah, huzzah! I'll just throw back my legs and pollute my britches with delight.
Big Bob, 12 freaking months, our 1-year anniversary. Thank you, my friend. How the hell are you? So, and now with this color, I'm going to actually find this opposite edge. Kind of loosely grab that edge real quick. Since it's kind of dinged up too, I don't want a full continuous line, but I want to make it spotty like that. That's going to help that hard edge pop off of that. I'm going to start finding all of these edges where we don't have any highlight. Grabbing those a little bit too.
Hey, somebody likes us.
Hey. Guy Allen, what is happening? Thank you for that follow. Back out a little bit now that we've done that one texture spot so you can get the feel for more of this. Also, so I'm not completely off camera all the time. That point. Now we're starting to get the feel of metallic creeping in there, slowly but surely. Like I said, it's one of those patient, I mean, I think all painting is about patience, but this is definitely one of those more patient techniques because it will live in the kind of WTF zone for a while. You'll look at the model and go, what the hell are you trying to do? And then eventually it'll just start popping out. You'll start to feel that it's taking on a sheen of metallic. And notice how normally, well, I say normally, when we do like bright metallics, we'll set the, you know, where I want it to be really shiny, we'll set more of the dark area right next to the very bright area. Here you'll see me blending a little bit more from brightness to darkness, so that dulls it all down. It makes it a less shiny material, but still hard surface. Right? Here's the only place where we've really gone with that because that peak kind of calls for it. I'd be silly not to use that detail on the model like that. I need more spatial bacteria. Assassin Red, what's going on Friday? How are you for the weekend? It would help if I do more YouTube videos more often, Armins. Hey, man, you find that make me more time machine, and I'm glad to do more YouTube videos. I love having YouTube videos out there for people to watch. We get good response back from them. I wish I could. Unfortunately, there's only one of me, and the amount of time I got during the week only gets shorter and shorter. So I have yet to find that magic method to do that. It is one of our long-term business goals. We just have to get to a spot where production is stable on all of our brushes. For those of you who may be new to the stream, maybe not know what we do, I manufacture a line of brushes called Bomb Wicks. I'm painting with one right now. This is our new prototype line of Kolinsky Sable synthetic sable brushes. We just came out with that type of hair for the first time in our what we call our det cords, our detail set. Those just went up on sale at slowfusegaming.com today. It's a set of brushes from a number 1 to a 10-aught for heavy detailing, like, you know, texturing and very fine lines. We sell a complete line of synthetic utility brushes, the big light blue handled ones for dry brushing and washing. We sell those. And then we have a complete line of sables as well that have that are like your traditional artist round brushes that are our black handled brushes. All of our black handled brushes are our natural hair sables. Our blues are our synthetics. I say that I guess our Longwicks, the production line of Longwicks, is actually red. So I'm lying already again. I'm a liar. Dang it. Dang it. I get so used to the fact that we made that limited production run of black Longwicks, and I haven't had any of the red ones in my hands yet. They haven't come from the factory. We also make our own line of brush soap that my partner Jen makes here in the studio by hand. So all sorts of really cool stuff that we do in the hobby supply world. And so when people are asking me for stuff like YouTube videos, as much as I would like to be able to do that all the time, we do so much work with our product lines that sometimes I just don't, there's not enough time in the week for me to do everything I want to do. God. It really is a drag when you love all of it, right? It's not like, a job where I'm like, oh God, I got to do that again. Obviously, there's tedious work that has to be done too. But by and large, I love it. I love being able to come on stream with you guys and do all the stuff that we do. It makes me wish I had all the time in the world. I think first thing I would want to do is probably stream more. Okay. I'll start thinking about this edge here. Taking the side of the brush, very blunt action here. Just lightly pull this entire edge here. And that's where it's amazing how just that little edge helps you find your metallic so good. But you got to be careful. You don't want to do it too early because it can throw your balance off. So I usually wait until this stage, right before I go to my brightest color, which in this case would be adding white to this spaceship exterior, and start grabbing that edge so that you can find it in the sheen of the metallic, right? And that'll really bring out all that other work that you've done. But like I said, you just got to be careful. Don't rush it. Even though it may look to you early on that, hey, this isn't as metallic looking as I'm really wanting it. Wait as long as you can to drop that edge on there so you don't mess yourself up, because you could do that edge with like one of your mid-tone blues in this case, and then maybe, it's like, oh, that looks great, and then not go bright enough. Might make some bad decisions. So I usually try to hold on to that till later in the process, like now. This edge here is not really an edge. So I got to be careful because this will be a pretty blunt line, big fat line if I'm not careful. Right through here, the edge is not peaked on the sculpt. It kind of slopes back towards the area that I've got painted gold there. So I'll be a little more careful right in there. Again, right along here. Using that sideways stroke as opposed to drawing the line right down the edge like I might be inclined to do. This will leave that texture of that kind of dinged and dented armor across the top. And let's find this edge. Stopping and starting every now and then to bring out nicks in the edge. I don't have to pull the entire surface. I can kind of blunt it in some places, brighten it, like right here where I got that bright line across, right? And then I can brighten it as I get up towards this peak. Like so. The key for edge highlights is to do exactly that. Vary your edge. Don't just pull a line of paint, right? Like if I just pull one continual line of this gray, it'll look good, but this looks tons better where it has that variation, right? It's brighter right here in this center area where I've got this little peak of brightness across this reflective spot here. And I can make a little triangle of shine on this side that then makes it look like that edge highlight kind of saturates and blends right into that line, right? And by doing that, it's very subtle how the line itself, and it's just one color, I haven't blended it, right? But the blend happens because I don't put much paint here, right? I just lightly pull from here and press harder as I get up towards the top. And by pressing harder, I'll leave more paint. The line will thicken up here. I'll hit it more times, right? And it appears brighter as I do that. So it looks like a comet tail. It goes from thin to thick. And if you vary that thickness, you get bright and dark in your edge highlight. And just that simple technique alone will help you tons in doing things like Space Marine armor, you know, shoulder guards and things like that, rather than just pulling the line consistent thickness all the way. That looks good. It can look better. And this is easy stuff, right? Let me do this, like on this side, right? I pulled with that last color that still had a little blue in it. Now this is pretty much all the primary gray, right? And again, I want it brighter right here. So I'll pull up some of my edge right into this area. And then I'll just kind of flick my brush out of that, blend it back. Always coming back to this spot to thicken that up. And I can pick like this area and go a little bit brighter right here by just building up a little bit more paint and then just tail it off. And notice how you get that little spot of what looks like bright, dim, bright, but all you've really done is vary your line thickness. And I'm still doing this with a fairly thin paint, but you have to be careful when you're doing edge highlighting like this, because if you go too thin, it just blurs out, right? It won't stick, so to speak. It won't give you the opacity that you're looking for. So I still am not using like full thickness paint right out of the bottle, but I'm not over wetting it. I'm not using it like a glaze right now. I'm trying to keep it to where I'm getting enough. Enigma, what the hell is going on, Robert? How the hell are you? Thank you so much for that. And again, I'll do that here. I'll get a little bit, because I've got a ding in the armor, I'll go a little bit brighter here, build up a little bit more paint, and then tail it off as I go down. Right? So again, bright, I'm just modulating. Bright, dim, bright, dim, bright, dim. I might even throw in a dark area there for that little chip, stuff like that. Right? I can come in right here, just kind of using a sideways. Notice how I'm going perpendicular to the surface now? That'll drag a lot more paint into that one area, and I can brighten up just that little dot right there. And then again, just kind of play with it. Flicking the paintbrush lightly across there so I vary that line thickness. And every little bit
$10
helps.
Donation received from Enigma023. Just a reminder that the greatest movie ever made was Grease 2.
You bastard, it wasn't Grease 2. It's not even a movie. Thank you, Rob. You're the man. Sliffy's Gaming folks have been trying to get GW to immortalize him as an actual Space Wolf character. I think they agreed to it, Armins. I saw a thing that said they'd agreed to it. They already had a character drawn up for another book that's coming out, I thought. Your collection, you have 2 core boxes of Legion to paint, Richter. I noticed all that terrain, but I'm wondering when we're going to see painted friggers. I'm a fracking liar who lies. I need a personal assistant. I can't afford a personal assistant. That's the other problem. The traumatic thing is that I need a personal assistant. I can't afford one. Now, I don't need a personal assistant. I need a partner in the business is what I need. Sapper Steve asked, do I have an estimate for what the go bags will cost when they are available? My goal is $39.99 to $41.99, so that $40 to $42 range is where it's going to hit. It's just, and I know it sounds tedious that it might be $1 or $2 more. What I do on how I do that pricing is if there's a little shift in customs pricing or shipping or whatever that costs the cost of a bag to go up $1, I just add that dollar to the retail. I don't make money on that extra dollar after my target price, but my target price is $39.99. I've left a little padding room there of a couple bucks in case customs overcharges us. The bags have a big duty fee on them and stuff like that. So all that backdoor business crap that has to go on, I have a little buffer space there. So hopefully that's good. So like $41.99, $39.99, $41.99 is the range. I should know in another week. And hopefully I'll have bags in another week or 10 days. I haven't gotten any. I was supposed to have some feedback from them today. I haven't gotten it yet. So unless it's in my email since I started the stream. Armin says, speaking of brush soap, you're going to need to get a couple of those sample tins so you can keep people from stealing your 2-ounce can at the store. Oh, those bastages. Shoot me an email. I'm sure we can handle you if you got like your FLGS, if we want to get them some samples. Drac, you need to go back and find the VOD for this skin and watch it. I did all of this skin off video. I did it down at Kingdom Con Live painting in San Diego this last weekend, Drac. But I can walk you through the steps for sure to help you understand what I did. How the hell do I edge highlight on Space Marine armor? Just like I just did on this. Vary your line thickness. That's why we do brushes like the det cords, right? So that when you know, some people are really confident pulling a nice thin edge highlight with like a number 2 or a number 3 brush. If you've been doing it for years, you can do it. But that's what these brushes are great for, is using the side of these brushes to pull and get into, you can use like the X10 and get into tight areas, although this small brush will not hold a lot of paint. I'm not going to lie to you. You know, but the number 1, then the 0 over here are great for exactly what I'm talking about, you know, and designed with that synthetic fiber that will act like a sable, just like what you saw me do. I'm doing it with a number 2, and look how dirty and beat up my brush is, right? Because I haven't been cleaning it, right? And I can still vary my line thickness and get a really good edge highlight through that whole thing, modulating it. You can see how it pulses, right? It looks like little comets. I got a tail and then a thick part, tail thick, tail thick. I pick my direction, I just do that. And even if you don't have the dings in the armor, like let's say you want to do new Space Marine armor, there's nothing that keeps you from varying the thickness of your edge line as you're doing that as well, right? You don't have to have the nicks to do this, and it doesn't mean that it's going to look beat up if you vary the line thickness. You just pick where you want it brightest, generally up like at the top peak. I make my line the thickest that I'm going to make it for my edge highlight, and then I just taper as I go down the sides. So if it were a brand new Space Marine Pauldron, I would just have it thicker up here and then taper down. Another thing you can do like I did is you saw me pick that color before this where it was kind of a you know, little bit of blue in the gray as opposed to just the gray. And I do my edge highlight with that. And I do that the whole way, right? Even thickness the whole way. Then when I come back with the bright edge highlight, like the actual bright highlight, when I hit it like that, then when I leave and I don't put any, I've got that blue-gray sitting back there that gives me that dark spot. Right? So you can play with that. And now if I go to white, white will even brighten this further. Right? Like if I come in and let me put a little dot of white on here. I'm not quite ready to use white, but I'm going to go ahead and throw it on here just for example so you can see. Because white would be the next stage in value across these edges, I think. Right? I'm going to wash my brush for you here in a second because it's getting to the point where it's not working right. We'll just grab a little bit of special white, make sure it's not too thin. And now here in that center area, you know, I'll go in and even thicken that line up again, but now only in the middle here and with white. And I'll just kind of use a stippling motion to thicken that line up, right? And now, notice how it even gets brighter just right there in the center. And you can start doing that like just on these edges where you've got like the cracks or the dings. I can come and just brighten the face of that up to white. And hit this little area right here just with a little bit of point of white. And here. There. And look at the effect that has, right? And that was literally less than a drop of paint, like off of the tip of the brush. And you can see I get this pow, 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 right? Just these bright spots that make all the difference in the world in the effect that you're trying to do, but don't take a lot of paint. You constantly hear me say that in most cases when you're using these kind of what we'll call special effects that you're painting, they're not really, they're just traditional ways of painting metals and things like what we're doing. But it's the least amount of color that you use that sometimes has the biggest effect on the model. Like right now, the brightest colors are what are dragging it to look like, metallics. And so if you use too much, though, you'll overdo it. And so that I feel like is the big learning curve for most people, is because you'll feel like, okay, I'm going to do this edge with just gray, and it's going to look so good, and it finally gets me where I want it to go, and yada, yada, yada. And so you overdo it. Because when we see a good thing, we want a lot of a good thing. So we'll just keep doing the good thing, right? It's the way the human brain works. The problem being that you'll overdo it, right? You'll get to a point where all of a sudden you're like, oops, that doesn't look good anymore. It did for a second, and now it doesn't because we overshot. So you just got to be careful, right? And in a lot of cases, I do that. I know some people hate it, the whole less is more conversation, right? But it really is true. Start with less because you can always add when you're painting. It's harder to take away. Right. Now when I go to white, again, that was back to gray. But now if I push up to white on some of these other highlight areas, can have an even bigger impact. Like I'm going to take this high corner here and put quite a bit of white, but only pull it right towards that back corner. I'm going to grab this edge of this crack, bust it out with a little bit of white, but again, thin down at the bottom, thicker and brighter up here at the top. Find it, there you go.
Well, huzzah, huzzah! I'll just throw back my legs and pollute my breeches with delight.
Who dat? Private Snafu, what the hell is going on? Thank you so much. Welcome back. Enjoy those emotes. Get some hype in chat for all these new and returning subs, folks. Thank you guys and gals so much for all the continued support. Allows us to keep doing what we're doing. And having fun with our friends watching paint dry. There you go. Just that subtle white now brightened that whole edge up even more. I don't really have a lot of dings down on this edge, but if I drop just like a pinpoint of white down in here, you'll be able to see it has pretty good effect on that line. Just a little bit of paint. Right? Just a little bit of off reflection along that edge. And sometimes if you want to, you can come in and you can, I'm not going to do it right there, but where would be a good spot? Like right here. I can add like just a little bit of a pinprick of shine, right? And basically create like a dot of white that intrudes into this darker spot on the armor. And by stippling, just kind of bleed it out. And then take it along that edge for a little bit. A lot of this is just doing it, right? And then figuring out, okay, what do I like? What makes sense? What looks good? Is there a rhyme or reason to it? Sometimes. Sometimes not. Doesn't always have to be a reason why you do something. Just this little pop, this little glow that goes into my darkness there will kind of amp up my contrast. And it could be like a ripple in the steel or some sort of weird reflection off in the distance. Who knows? the further away a light is in the distance on a reflective material, the more it will become just a tight reflection and not saturate. Right? So you can do just like a dot of white in the midst of everything else, and that could be, the story could be that it's, you know, a light or something glowing off in the distance. Not looking bad. Again, with this shine down here, I'm just going to start picking small areas to amp that line up to get that variation in there. Again, if I just pull this whole edge with white, it's going to lose the impact, because then everything's just white. And where do you go from there? I think I can do a little bit more bright white on that back line. The only one that looks a little dull to me right now. Let me do that real quick and then I'll catch up on chat. Thank you guys for bearing with me. Jen's not here. Generally on Fridays when I knuckle down into painting, Jen is helping out reading chat. But like I said earlier, she is chaperoning the high school prom tonight. So got to live without her. Dang it. And just kind of find those spots that I can drop in there. Notice how on that back line I did 1, 2, 3, and then a little bit of lining up towards the top, but I get those irregularities in my edge highlight that give it some, I won't say texture, but they give it that variation, that dim, bright, dim, bright. I don't want to go full dark, like I wouldn't want any of those to be dark blue, right? But I like them being a little bit more in those kind of middle grayish blues there. I am going to very lightly pull this that I missed with those other colors. If I do it right, I can fake it into being kind of a gray blue instead of this bright white if I just go real thin. Brighten up this corner area. And I can come back just like everywhere else and I can be like, okay, let's do a little bit. God, I got all this dried paint on the end of this brush. It's horrible. Where'd my point go? What was the point? There we go. We start finding our metallic coming to life there. And now it's set up to the point where I feel like I can start finding what other colors I want to add in, because I'm going to want this gold to reflect back on that dark iron, but not vice versa, right? The blue won't reflect back in on the gold, if at all, if much at all. But the gold I want to shine and be the brighter part of this whole thing. So I will throw some of that gold back into whenever I determine like my yellow ochre maybe, and maybe a little bit more orangey colors in that gold, depending on what I choose, and then have that reflect back into some of these bright areas on the dark steel, right? So now just kind of like I worked my gold up to the point where I could kind of figure out, all right, where do I need it brighter? Do I want to put greens in it, more oranges, more brightness in certain areas, so on and so forth. Without a lot of heavy lifting, we get the beginnings of our non-metallic steel on the shoulder pad. And that starts to look pretty good. Not as dark as I want it. I don't want it that bright. I don't want it to look like that kind of chrome. So I'm going to go back in with some black and blue and darken up these reflective areas. But it shows me that I'm comfortable with where my bright areas are. They feed through from the gold down here pretty well into this here. I'm happy with this part of this right here. Right? It's when we get here, it's a little off. I need to have this alter on the gold a little bit, like we talked about. But I'm close. I just need to have this dark edge brought up a little bit, and then some brightness down here. So, because it's an irregular shape, right? The insert is not symmetrical. So I kind of painted it like it was. I kind of have this bullet shape of highlight, but that doesn't really fit. So if I shift it all over a little bit, I think we'll be perfect. Wool Eaters, watching me paint is like watching Bob Ross. You just watch in amazement and learn and learn and learn. Good. I hope that's a great thing. I don't want everybody to find it too daunting. I try to find words that make it seem like that it is learnable, right? I know that sometimes I get contacted by people and they say, man, I'll never be as good as I see this thing. And I'm like, I don't want to give that vibe off. I want you to feel like what I'm doing, even though I might be doing it at a level or something that you're not ready to jump into, it's not something you can't try. The concepts are there. Do them small. Don't start with call and want to do non-metallic call, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But you know, we work to try to find the words that make it something that feels like it's a hurdle you could get over eventually. So, but thank you for that. Enigma, did you get your order in? Are the bags coming via FedEx? No, the bags are handled with our importer. The edges are so much larger on that bust than a Space Marine model, Armin's? I mean, not really. Sort of yes, sort of no. I mean, you know, if we take our poor little Space Marine dude, we need a smaller brush, obviously, so let's break out one of our new Detcore detail brushes, right? But if I go in on this Space Marine, let me get some more gray paint. Since he is gray, it actually works out. It's very, very dry right now. It's funny how even here I can tell the difference one day to the next with how dry it is. Zoom in here. I'll show you. This is our test model. This poor guy gets whatever paints we throw at him, so there's no rhyme or reason to the color scheme on this poor guy. But again, just make sure you're not too thin, not too thick. Probably too thin still. As you can imagine, with my way of painting, too thin is the problem. Right, so my first thing I'll do is I'll come through with like the spaceship exterior, and I'll go ahead and I'll highlight the whole edge.
Well, huzzah, huzzah! I'll just throw back my legs and pollute my breeches with delight.
It's a tarp! Thank you so much for that. Welcome back, my friend. This top edge here. And I just want to find those areas where the light is going to hit. I don't want to edge highlight the whole damn shoulder pad like you'll see sometimes. Starts looking like a Tron costume. But I will just kind of grab this edge. We'll just do the front half of this and show you, but using kind of the side of the tip of the brush, if that makes sense. Lightly find that edge. And same thing across that top edge. All right. Now, if I jump to white on this, I won't do the whole edge with whatever my brightest highlight color is. It might not always be white. You might use bright yellow or who the hell knows. Right? But up here is where I expect it to be the shiniest. Right? So I'll hit it with white up here. And I'll probably do my little deal where I bring a little bit of shine in over the top. Oh. Right. And you can tell already what difference that has. Sorry, I'm zoomed in. I gotta make sure I stay on the camera. That little glint across the top. But don't bring that white down too far. Like I might extend it down like this. Up to that top spot. And then I might grab just like this inside corner here, depending on how shiny I want things to look. So it's not size that has anything to do with it. It's literally just finding the patience to make sure that you're basically edge highlighting 1 1/4 times. And you'll edge it with the gray or whatever first, or your kind of mid highlight, and then come back after it with a brighter color. Right? And you can get that kind of sheen going on anything. Right? And I mean, you can take that further. I could have with the gray. Do I have gray left here? Now with the gray, have done this shine on the top. So that the white didn't have such a harsh change to that dark gray that was on there. Like so. You can see the difference. Very subtle, but makes a huge difference and gives you that kind of look of metallic. I mean, you could take this all the way to metallic if you wanted to. You can get crazy. But once you get used to doing this, you'll start finding highlights and, effects on your model that you hadn't seen before. Like right now, where we got this edge brighter, let's just go ahead and do the same thing we did up top. Let's find a little brightness right down along this front edge. Blazing that light gray in, like so. Now if we go back, grab a little bit of white, and just throw that white kind of right in the middle in that V shape. Bingo. So, I mean, real simple and fast. And you can change the way that it all looks, no matter how small it is. Doesn't have to be big, huge pauldron of doom. They're all just more or less of the exact same thing. Right? You wouldn't do as much variation on something small like a Space Marine. So I wouldn't go around and be like, with my white, I'm probably not going to go and find a lot of these little sections to poke bright spots out on. I could, right? But I'm probably not going to spend a lot of time doing that. Because there's just not as much space to work with. But the principle remains the same. And you can see the big difference that it makes. So again, I'm always saying, just vary your line width, if nothing
dirty
else.
little thing.
Do we have anything where we can really show that super clearly? How about this guy? Another one of our test models, right? So if we were, let's just take like a red, something on this. Like I said, wait when you're doing your non-metallics to find your edge until pretty late in the model so that you don't mislead yourself. But on something where you're just doing like a color, there's no reason why you can't find your edge early on, right after your base coat, and start grabbing it. Thank you so much. Ultra Ravenswolf, 7 freaking months. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, so basically find that edge early. Imagine that you've got a model painted deep red. Find that edge. And then each time you go to your next color and painting your whatever armor, right, go ahead and then split that line. Right, so I'll leave it dark down low, and then I'll start fining and widening and thickening that line as I go up towards my highlight spot. This is going to get pink real quick, but don't worry about it. Need more white. Right, and so then when I paint my next color on, I can go in and find that line and divide it in half again. Right, so I start by painting the whole line all the way down. Then I grab like 2/3 of it maybe with my highlight color. Then I split that in half with this color, always thickening my color as I go up towards the top, until eventually you get to white or ivory or what the hell ever you're using for your brightest color as your highlight. Probably too much paint. Split that last one in half. Thickening that line up as I go towards the very pinnacle of that deal, right? And all of a sudden, you've got a totally different edge highlight working for you. Right? It goes from 1, 2, 3, 4 colors. Now, if I were to go back with my bright pink and start kind of finding these spots like this, now you can make like weathering cracks and stuff in it, and they start to make some sense. Right? There aren't cracks in this model, but now it looks like it without having to work very hard at all because I have that dark edge highlight. I'm still calling it an edge highlight because it's this red on here is going to be lighter than whatever was on the base coat down here, right? So I go with the red, then I mix it, tint it up a little bit up further, a little bit further, until finally I'm at, pure white or whatever the hell I'm going to use for my model up at the top. So that is a very good way to edge highlight your models. You just do it with each, respective or progressive layer of color that you're going with, right? And you get that edge highlight that just kind of shows up out of nowhere. And you haven't had to blend anything. I didn't blend anything. I literally just put one color on. It dries. You paint the rest of the model. You come up with your next brightest color, add a little bit of white to that, edge it a little bit further, then a little bit further and a little bit further until finally you've got a really nice edge highlight that makes sense. It gets brighter as we go towards this point of the model that's in the light, darker as we go down into the dark. Right? As opposed to just, coming around and framing everything with white or bright red or whatever. This will allow you a lot more flexibility in choosing your colors and things as well. So, because like on red like this, we went kind of into pinks, but it wouldn't be like a real obtrusive pink on a model that was ultimately red. You wouldn't have to go into orange if you took these steps in between to kind of half step your detail. What causes us the most problem, especially with colors like red, is that you're trying to edge this entire panel with a bright color. And because it sits in such contrast against your dark shaded parts of your model down here, if you go with like a pink, it's going to look pink down here. Whereas if you go like this, you lose the fact that we went through a pink highlight on our red because it only shows up in a couple of little bitty spots and then eventually goes to white and makes sense. Right? So really, really easy things. You just have to get to where you're remembering to do them at the right times. I mean, there's nothing that says you can't go back and do this at the end of the model, right? It just means breaking out those 4 colors again and doing them again. But, a lot of people will laugh and say, your edge highlighting has 4 colors in it. And I'm like, yeah, but that's all done at like the time that, I was doing it. I didn't have to break out all those pots and do it right then. I kind of know that if I'm painting my base layer red, I can take a little bit of white and add it to it and go ahead and edge highlight before I stop using that red. And I've got everything based with a little bit of edge highlight that's just a little subtle difference. Then I go to my next brightest red and I paint my armor with that, however I'm going to do it. And then I take my brush and add a little bit of white to it and then edge it up halfway of the last one. And then the next color halfway. And if you use 13 colors, you do that 12 times. If you use 10 colors, you do it 9 times. If you use 4 colors, you do it 3 times. right? But you get a really nice transition on those edges that isn't just bam, highlight, that drives so many people nuts. It's one of those situations, right? You're looking at your model and you're being like, there's something that's just not sitting right. And it's because a lot of times your edge highlight sits down in your shadows, right? And the colors don't blend like they need to. Whereas if your edge highlight came and creeped up out of the shadows like the rest of the colors do, then you'd be a lot happier. Private Snafus are going to be a paint-along figure later this year? Yes. As a matter of fact, we've been really lazy with the paint-alongs because of everything else that's going on around here. But yes, we do have plans for a couple of paint-alongs coming up. I'm hoping that during May we're going to have one. But if not May, definitely June. Bill Neary, you think you might have a second to look at a photo of a model you were asking about yesterday? Yeah, I'm going to take a look at Whip here in just a little bit. Thank you, world leaders. Much appreciated. That means the world right there. Fist, I was talking to you. Starting with call is fun.
Well, huzzah, huzzah. I'll just throw back my
you're
legs
crazy.
and pollute my britches with delight.
World leaders, thank you so much for that. Welcome to the club. He gifted Real Ashman gifted a tier 1 sub to world leaders. Real Ashman, thank you. Thank you for that. The Real Ashman coming through. Big time. World leaders, welcome to the family. Everybody, let's get some hype. Tip our hats to Real Ashman for gifting that tier 1 sub. Thank you so much, my friend. Make a command that plays an audio clip so you can tell me when I'm off camera. There is. It's pay attention, I think. Exclamation point, pay attention. I think if you go exclamation point sounds, it'll show them all in there. I think they all still work. People play them all the time, so.
Well,
just don't abuse it.
Huzzah. I'll just throw back my
Camo
legs
Specs,
and
10
pollute
freaking
my
months.
britches with
Thank you, my
delight.
friend. You guys humble me. Thank you so much for being part of the community. Ultra Ravens will just order the deck cord brush set. Looking forward to using them all. Fantastic. Thank you for the support. Yeah, I mean, for stuff like what I'm just talking about with the edging and making sure that you're being able to vary your edge details and thickness of line, having that variation in those paint size and those brush sizes works a champ, right? Because if you're trying to find those real small details and nooks and crannies, sometimes it's easier to just grab a small brush. Now, granted, like I said, I'm not going to lie to you. The small brushes don't hold as much paint.
Good.
Right? There you go. See? Armin's has got it. Now the sounds are going to go crazy. Everybody's like, what? We have sounds? You know, you'll see, like most of my painting that I've done tonight, I did with the larger brush here, right? That's now got guners at the tip that needs to really be cleaned, right? I did with the larger brush, the number 2 right here. And I haven't used the number 3 much, but the number 2 that I've been using most of the time, right? And then I'll go down to the 1.
That dog's as subtle as a hand grenade in a barrel of oatmeal.
And did some of the work with that too. So, you know, it's just nice to have that ability, especially for those what I call finishing details, edging, you know, texturing. If you want to find little hatch texturing on things. For a lot of times for people, it's easier to do it with a small brush, so you feel like you're in that cradle the whole time. You're not going to have as much paint, so you're going to have to pull line, get paint, pull line, get paint, pull line. Whereas with a bigger brush, you can line. But it takes more finesse to be able to get a larger size brush. And you have to have a real delicate hand to be able to get that big brush to pull a nice, consistent, thin line if you want those textures. Because just a little bit of pressure then gets the point to spread more on a big brush. So it all just depends. What I find is that as people go along and get more and more confident with their painting, they really come down to a wheelhouse where they have like 1 or 2 brushes that they use. And a lot of times it's like a number 2 and a 0, right? Because your number 2 does 90% of the work and your 0 does your finishing work, all right? How would I highlight Army Painter Rough Iron? Rough Iron's a great color because it's kind of a coppery silver. So you can kind of go either way. I tend to think that I would highlight it with silvers more than the coppers because the coppers are going to be lower value at the end, and so it might screw with it, right? So silvers, I would start with a dark silver and then work up to aluminum or something. The same way you just saw me do with these, you can do with metallic paints. You can start with a dark metallic and then just keep layering up through to your bright metallic. Faux show. There's nothing different. Metallic paints are just paints. They just look different, right? They have a satin sheen to them because of the metallic in them when you're done. But at the end of the day, that's just like using a normal paint. You can blend them. You can layer with them. You can glaze with them. They're gonna. Some of them, when you glaze with them, get a little funky because the metallic, depending on how dense the metallic mica flake in it really is. If it's pretty thin, then when you glaze with it, it just turns into weird cloudy mush. But most of the ones that I've done, like the Army Painter, the Vallejo, the Scale 75, those things, when you glaze with them, they work perfect. So you can use them very, very thin, too. and do some neat stuff. Faux show. All right. Yeah, if you guys want an exclamation point whip and put some stuff over on a whip, we'll take a look. Melty Morty, you see a lot of really good painters experiment with gouache on minis in addition to acrylic. You think trying gouache is a merit for regular skilled painters? I think it's just thin acrylic paint, so you can use it, but I don't see a reason. It's a paint that's built for exactly what I do with normal acrylics. Right? It's kind of like an acrylic watercolor, which is what I do. But yeah, I mean, a lot of those people are probably doing it like over white. I would think like more so over like a white primer or a light gray primer. Right? Because it'll take some of that porosity in the primer and allow you to do some cool kind of staining techniques with paint as opposed to just painting. But I mean, that is kind of similar to what, if I'm thinking of the right thing, that's kind of similar to what I do. Right? Weird Cloudy Mush, new band name. Right after we do Involuntary Anus. I spent 2/3 of my life not realizing there was a voluntary and an involuntary anus. Who knew? I thought I was in control. But yeah, I mean, Melty, I find a lot of people experimenting with things and finding new stuff, like using oils and using, like gouache or, other types of pigments, making their own pigments in mediums and things. Again, like I said at the beginning of the stream, I feel like if you find something that feels comfortable and really gets your confidence because it allows you to do a technique or create an effect that you've never been able to do it. Don't care what the paint is. Don't care if it's oils, enamels, latex, acrylics, gouache, you name it. Whatever it is watercolors. You can use whatever you want as long as it makes you feel comfortable as you're doing it. I feel like the way my brain works is that unless you want to add texture to a model, acrylic will literally do everything. That's what makes acrylic such a godsend for what we do painting in 3 dimensions. You can literally do anything with it. You can't do it the same way that you do, like, say, oil washes, right? Oil washes are a big thing that people love because they're so flexible in their dry time. So you can be sloppy and then go back and clean them off and leave them where you want there. So then rather than taking the time and the minutia to kind of pin wash in panel lines, you can pin wash but not have to worry about getting outside the lines and then go back with a Q-tip and wipe away the excess, and you get perfect pin wash every time. So it becomes a means of efficiency and confidence building. But you can do the exact same thing with an acrylic and get the exact same look with an acrylic. Unless you want to build texture. And then you'd have to use specialty acrylic paints. I mean, you can, like with, layering, basing paints and things like that. Oils can give you textures. That's what they're built for. But they even make acrylics now that are made to, and mediums for acrylic that are made to give them the ability off the brush to act more like an oil. I hear a lot of people saying that they like watercolors or something like that because they use gel mediums for their paints. Well, I don't know that they're really telling you the truth, because a gel medium is what I'm talking about. You use a real gel acrylic medium in acrylic paints, it'll make you able to peak paint like little waves and give you texture on canvas like oils do. Because that's one thing acrylics never do, is that you can't see the painting for the way the painter painted it. Whereas with oils, a lot of the classic artists really like the fact that I can see the paint strokes. I can see the fluidity. I can see the way the artist applied the paint because the paint stroke is there, and they actually make the paint stroke part of the picture by blending it and making it more aggressive in certain parts and slimming it down elsewhere. So there's all sorts of ways you can use oils for texture, whereas acrylics don't really have that. But now they've made it to where you can. So I guess the long story short is you can do whatever you want, use whatever paints you want, never feel like you have to step outside of acrylics. If you're a person that watches and you see somebody doing something with a particular paint, whether it's an enamel or an oil or whatever it is, and they do an effect and you're like, oh, now I have to learn something else. You don't. You can do everything that you see done with acrylics. It just may not be done the same way. You can achieve the same look, though. I will throw that out there. And that's a pretty bold statement, but I really feel confident that you can pretty much do it with acrylics. You just may have to use a different method because acrylics act differently than some of those other paints. KO. What else did I want to do on this before we take a look at whip? I wanted to catch this edge on the inside here. I did. So again, like I just was showing you, I'm going to go back because I forgot, or I didn't really pay attention, but on this, I didn't do any of our blue-gray edging on the backside. It's literally not edged at all. So I'm going to go back with our signal blue. Again, the colors that I've been using for this quote-unquote steel frame around the shoulder pad that I'm doing is signal blue and spaceship exterior and white. These are the three colors I've been using to do all of this. So I've just been mixing it on the palette. I'll turn the palette cam on. You can see the mess I'm making over here on the palette, right? But I mean, this is what we're doing right here. Right. So there you have it. The red is what we did for that example. Literally signal blue. This is where the spaceship exterior was, and there's my white. So, you know, and all I'm doing is blending as I'm going to get the colors that I'm using. And in this case, for this edge highlight, because I forgot, now we will have to go back and mix again. Just get a little bit of signal blue and a little bit of our gray. And a little bit of a mixing brush. My poor number 2 is not liking me right now. I've been beating the crap out of it today. I cleaned the number 3 when the stream started. The number 2 got no love. The number 3 still had red paint in it, so I was a little bit more obliged to clean before we started. All right, so I get a little bit of that middle tone. Then we'll come over here. I'm just gonna again, kind of skipping over the areas where I know there's little dings in the armor there. Here as well. Chunk out of the armor here, so I'll go down and then back up. And this edging, with this color, I'm almost blending this color into the surrounding area. I don't want it to be a hard line. I want it to kind of fade off into the color around it. These edges are not very sharp either, so I got to be careful, because again, I can get a very dull line. That's okay. Just using the side of the brush. Paint's thin, so I can do this kind of wispy application. And then just kind of blend it in there to that point. So, okay, so now I at least have a little bit of that edge found. Back over to the palette. Pull a little bit more of our gray down into our mix of this blue here. We get an even brighter blue. So, now I want a better point. And I want to start pulling towards this bright spot up here where it's going to shine. So I will come up this edge, skipping my nicks. And thicken it up into that kind of triangular pattern as I reach the top. A little bit right here. Then catch it again as it comes down into this bright spot here. Again, find my little triangular glow into that white. But notice how I didn't pull a brighter color along that whole edge. Now's where I'm starting to break it up a little bit. Brighter than right here. Breaking that line up. And here. Be the brightest kind of right in the center of this curve. And blend out of that curve into darkness. So. Do want to grab just the little V right down here at this corner. Pull that onto the armor surface just a little bit. Then kind of tailor it away. That. The fun part of this, for me at least, is that as my paintbrush runs out of paint, I can be a little bit more creative. I can use heavier brush strokes, and it's more like dry brushing now because there's less paint on the brush, so I can use these heavy kind of flicking strokes, and it'll just pick up those details that stand out. So I don't have to be as precise as I run out of paint. That. And again, kind of just as I'm coming up to this point, brighten that line up a hair. You brighten it a little bit as it comes around the bottom. And a little bit right through the center of this part. Now, back over here. Grab my number 1 of my det cords. Again, these det cords are brand new. They just went up in the store today, and I am loving them. And pull more gray down in here to where this is just about solid gray. I want the smaller brush because I want better control coming through these areas now. And here's where we start getting a lot more specific. So I'll go in and just this center spot. Pull that across. There.
Hey, somebody likes us.
There. And then coming up towards the top. Thank you so much for that follow. Sorry, I missed your name probably. Did I see it? Bundy, what's going on? Thank you for that. Again, I can kind of just catch right here in the middle.
Well, huzzah, huzzah! I'll just throw back my legs and pollute my breeches with delight.
Kameki! What the hell is going on, Kameki? Thank you for that Twitch Prime. Long time no see. Welcome back. Again, all those areas where I just have been moving towards getting brighter, I'll just slightly add these brighter colors, but less and less of that area, right? So we added the bluish gray and then the lighter bluish gray and now just the gray at the tip, right? So again, I get that faded highlight. Down here, I'm going to go just kind of right in the center with a little bit of the gray, not too much. Like that, right in there. And then in this. water on this. That. Looking pretty good. And just a little bit right in. Make sure I'm on camera here. Trying to keep the palette up. I'm horrible at this. That edge, just a little dot right there. A little bit through this area. So, and then maybe here. And I don't have to put any on the bottom. Don't feel like you got to do stuff everywhere you go and do this. Right, like there's this little nook here that I haven't done anything with. I'm going to go ahead and put a little paint here so I remind myself to come back and grab this. I'm going to have to come back and do this little dent with blue-gray as well. But I want to remind myself, so I'm going to put that there. Brighten this up just a little bit more. So. At that point where my paintbrush is acting almost like a dry brush. Very little paint coming off of it. Use that to my advantage. Now I will go to straight white. Do I still have some white on here? Let's risk it. Is this stuff here? Can I grab it without it being red? No. Damn it. Thought we'd get lucky. I'm such a stinge. I'm like, wait a minute. Can I rob the white from that part of the palette that's all impregnated with freaking yellow and green and red? No. Sorry, that's not how that works, Fuse. Damn it. Damn it, my dreams crushed before me. And here, of course, with our white, we don't want much at all. I just want to grab these brightest points. The littlest amount of white. I'll probably do just a little bit on the point right here, since that faces our light source. Maybe a little bit right here. The dot. The thing over here. Then edge right here. I'm doing this the wrong direction, but we'll do it anyway. That, oh, get right in there. Get here. So.
Pay attention, son. This is for your own good.
Yeah, I know. I was off. I get it. I'm zoomed in like super tight, so I'm screwing myself on this. I apologize. It's that area.
Well, huzzah, huzzah! I'll just throw back my legs and pollute my britches with delight.
Do a little of this perpendicular area right here. Pop a little bit of white in that. A little bit on this other side, just in the middle. Thank you so much. Who dat? L freaking T, 20 months, my friend. You rule. Are you here? Feel like you're here. You had some det cord once, then you blew it all to C4. That's what it's for, man. Hashtag secretly not for painting. Det cord brushes. Somebody in chat was like, I wonder if they got held up in customs because they're called det cords and they think it's explosives. I hope not. Don't want that knock on my door. No siree. But it's a little too much paint, but that's probably right. This little dot right, ding, right there. Right. And bingo. That's good enough for government work for what we set out to do tonight, which was just kind of set up our look and feel for our metallic on the model, right? I feel like with that white, I should probably take the time to squidge a little bit on here. In this bright section, though. Anytime I'm doing like this halo kind of glow, I take a very, very thin white. Here, let me turn the palette cam off so we can see this better. Right. I take a very, very thin white glaze in like this area. I start wide at the base and then just kind of taper it off at this edge. And I'm taking it through all the other colors that are on here. To brighten that whole area up. And then I'll come back, stipple in where I want the ultimate kind of saturation to be, and I want it to kind of follow right alongside that spot that I had already set up. And that calls for me to get a little bit brighter coming out of it on the edge. So like we had said, we want this to be brighter right here. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of stipple back to my shine off the edge perpendicular so that it kind of makes that seem thicker. And then blend it out a little bit further along there. That'll brighten that up a lot. Bingo. Feel like that's what we set out to do. Now I got to determine what I'm going to do with these colors, because this isn't the final. It's going to sound weird, right? But this isn't the final color that I'm looking for. Like I said, I want the steel to be darker, so I need to darken that up. I'll play around with that with color in the darker reflection areas and the blend between light and dark. I'll probably darken that up a little bit. I wasn't sure if I was even going to take it to white, so I might dull the whole thing back down and like glaze it back over with a black and a blue and dull it all back down, right? But it gives me a good setup for what I'm looking for as far as like where the shine would be, where the reflections would be. I'm digging it, right? I just need to now match the gold up to it. Like I said, pull that, reflect this dark reflection up a little bit to match up here on the silver, and then brighten the gold down here in the corner. That's the biggest thing I got to do. Right. But we're on the right road. Now I can start adding in my greens to my golds and find the color I want for my gold, because gold can live in more orangey golds, yellow golds, greenish golds, purple. We're not going to use any purple because he's got so much purple on his body already, right? So that's not the goal here. But we don't want it to be this yellow, this bright yellow gold, right? So I'm going to use a lot of greens in it, things like that, to kind of decolorize that. We can, as a matter of fact, I can show you what I'm talking about. Do we have time? Then we'll look at some whip. Yep. I'm going to do this real quick just so you can get a feel for what I'm saying. Take some Cam Dark Green, one of our favorite greens. Just Model Air Cam Dark Green. We'll take a number 2 brush. We will get this down to dirty water glaze. If you're not familiar with what that means, basically think watercolor. Right? And so on this, what I'll do is I'll start playing at this level with bringing this color into my golds. Right? So I'll start dragging some greens in. I know I'm going to change some of this area up anyway, but I can start playing with color here. And see how that green kind of has an immediate effect, albeit very, very delicate effect through those browns and yellows. Right? But it can change the entire look and feel of a model very quick. And again, the power of working thin allows you to do this at any stage. I don't have to make a determination on all of my colors right away. I can play. Right, so I can bring this green up along here. Reinforce it down here. Right. But it can give me a more of a dull glow to my gold as opposed to that brighter yellow. Now, when I do this, I'll have to come back in. You can already tell, like I was pretty rough with all of my highlights on the gold because I didn't know if I really was going to leave it that way. So I'll have to go in and cut those and blend them all back in, but that's the goal. I mean, that's why I call this blocking in, to give you a rough feel for what you're trying to do in the course, especially when doing something like non-metallic metals, right? Because you've got a lot, especially when you've got something like this, a big flat surface basically to work with. It does have these divots in it. Those aren't painted. Well, I mean, I painted them, but they're cut into the sculpt. No, but back here I do the same thing. Bring some of that green over all my highlights, all my shadows, the whole nine. Now, I know I'm going to fix this, so this is all futile, what I'm doing right now, but it might be something that I'll do just to play and see if I like the color. The greenish gold on there better than the yellowy gold. And I think I already know that I do. So in a lot of cases, this is just kind of the verification of the thumbs up I was looking for. Right. But you see that faint glow of green that starts showing up in there right now. So now's the time that I start doing that. Start playing with all my colors, get my metallic colors set the way that I want them, the right amount of yellow, the right amount of blue to match the right amount of gray-green on the model versus the bright green on the malachite necklace and all of that kind of stuff. So I've got to find the area where all these colors work well together. And I'm not sure that they do yet, I mean, I have to sometimes take risks and say, I want to do this malachite necklace. Is it going to look right with this? And then I might have to play with this steel because the blue and the green next to each other, but I know I'm going to darken that up. So I'm not worried about it right now. But I'll just continue to play with this as I go until I find the color combos that actually make it work right. Like this is more what I'm looking for because we've got all this darkness on it. This I like more. Less blue, more dark. So I'll go back and I'll work this feel in to this. Right, darken this area up in here and broaden it to where it pushes these light blues back up towards the tip and this tip out here to where the brightness will shrink some, the darkness will grow, and I'll get this kind of feel here. And this will be the overall color of that trim because I like this sitting up next to the gold better and next to the green and everything better than when I have so much light pale blue. The pale blue is almost too cooling against this. I don't have enough heat on the model generated. I would need to have like his skin be red for this to look really good. But this, on the other hand, right, where the blue isn't the main star of the show on this side, I can get away with all of these other light, kind of dull, desaturated colors, and they'll all live together very well and allow my gold to be my warmest color, which is what it's going to be. It'll be the warmest color on the model if I do everything the way I'm thinking about it right now. Video Caesar. What's going on? The next logical step is thumb cam. We need to have like an ongoing view of my thumb palette. Sometimes you can tell all the colors, Now it just looks like I painted with white. Hey, At this point, you do wonder if I'm talking to you or talking to myself. What are you talking about, Still Woman Name? I'm always talking to you guys. You passed out for about an hour, Video Caesar? Yeah, right. I mean, like I said, you know, things like non-metallic metal are those effects that really just kind of pop together towards the end. You know, it's hard to tell where it's going and what it's doing in some of the stages as you're working on it, because it just is blended colors. And it's, in this case, it was just gray blues, and it just like, yeah, whatever. But then when we started finding our edges, started becoming the thing. When we then hit our whites and our bright spots and, you know, made our finite shine areas really start to pop, right? Some of it's saturating out on you because of the camera. So if I shade it, you can get an even better feel for what I'm seeing on my end, right? And you start to get that metallic feel to it, and then it all kind of comes together. But it's literally like the last 10 minutes of 2 hours worth of painting that bring it all together and show you what you were looking for in cases like this. Now, obviously, it's not always that way. You can block things in to get a better picture. I've shown you guys, like on Magnus, when we were talking about his sword. We've used that as kind of a demo on occasion when we're airbrushing, how you can kind of come in and use that and the airbrush and some very quick edge detailing and stuff, and blocking in your black and my bright whites to kind of get us, you know, a kind of a, what is it, a paint by numbers, like an ABC starter kit for what you need to be doing. This is before we've done any color. So there's nothing that makes it to where you can't do that early if you just want to do it in black and white, regardless if I was going to do this as a gold blade or a steel blade or green or whatever metallic I wanted. I can always start with just black and white and gray for my values to get my reflections and my, you know, my light saturation fixed onto the metallic surface so that I can see metallic earlier. For a lot of people, when you're just starting out, this is a really good step to do because it allows your brain to latch on to the effect that's going to happen at the end and work towards that. Whereas then when you paint like that for a while, you can bypass this step and do like what I did here and just start with color and blue, and you know that you're going to get there because you understand your light and your value better along the way, right? But there's no shame in this, right? I do this all the time, showing you guys, you know, just the easy steps. Again, I have to do this the whole of Doom. I'm not trying to catch you guys out. You know, and just so that you can see a semblance of what you're looking for at the end. And now you can start adding color, and it will guide you because you know where you need your bright spots, you know where you need your highlights, and you can play around with just black, gray, and white, or just black and white technically, and mix them together until you get this looking right and it feels like metal, and then start adding your color. So I always urge people to do this. You know, for today's deal, I was just going after it because obviously I've done this a lot. So for me, I typically will just start and go just with color. I mean, that's what we do on pretty much everything, unless I'm using it as a flat out tutorial. But I'm digging this. I think it looks good on this one, and this shoulder's pretty plain. It has nothing going on except for some cuts in it. This is going to look phenomenal because we have so much detailing to catch. You can imagine like how much this jumps out every time we've got like a change in direction where I can find a shine and then throw it back into reflected darkness, like across here, and, you know, down on the bottom. This side's got a lot of angular changes on it. This with the face is all going to be in that dark steel, and the teeth and everything are really just going to give me the opportunity to make all of that really jump out at you. So I'm excited about this, although it's going to take forever, but I think that's going to look really good. A lot of times I'll do exactly what you've seen me do here, which is pick an area on the model to test my color schemes, find it all out, determine what I'm really going to like before I jump into something like this that's this detailed. You know, I'm insane, but I'm not quite that insane all the time. So I'll get my gold the way I like it, know how I'm going to work it up. That way I can then just hit it one time over here. Oh yeah, you just saw me when I was doing like the light blues. Yeah, it just looks like blue paint. You know, it's the least amount of paint you use on your model that makes the biggest difference. It's those bright whites and those last blends of gray and white and blue that really make it happen. So, Fitzy, yes, the new deck cords are in. All right, let's take a look at some whip, see what you guys got cooking. We got a few minutes left. I have no idea where Kenny left off. if anybody can help point me in the right direction of where he was looking at whip last. I kind of know that it was, okay, it was these guys. So I don't know what he looked at. Oh, I know these. I know I'm supposed to look at these. So I guess I can start here. I don't know. Question mark? Maybe? Thimble Sage, Malifaux Titania, Queen of the Fae, modded and added 2 wings. Oh, the bottom, these outside ones, right? Because I think she just has normal wings. I like this. All right, learning mistake, never wash flame, working on translucent cloths. Any tips for skin undertones? Is this, I will answer this regardless. I love the model. I love the change that you've done on it with the extra set of wings. It gives it a whole new dimension when you have this lower set down here. It becomes almost more, I don't want to say evil. I don't know if Queen of the Fae is evil, but everything in Malifaux has like a tinge of evil to it, right? But I like this. It has like a little bit more of a defiant nature to it as opposed to just angelic wings. So I dig that a lot. The next statement that you make, don't ever wash flames, that can be a problem, although depending on how and what color. Washing flames with a dark wash, usually not a good thing. Washing it with a light wash will do wonders for you though. Especially like if you have like a light blue to dark blue flame like this, washing it with a very pale blue can do some amazing stuff. Washing it with white can do some amazing stuff too. And I know you're not going to find like a quote unquote white wash, but do something like the quick shade wash mixing medium from Army Painter mixed with white paint will turn into a white wash, and you could just wash down towards the beginning of the flame to brighten it up. And those kinds of things, very counter to what we normally think. We normally wash with darker colors, but when doing fire and OSL and effects like that are bright colors, you can wash with very bright colors, and it will actually have a really neat effect on your darker colors. It will kind of get pale where the shadows would normally be dark, but that's what you want. Especially with flame, the deeper inside the flame you go, the brighter it becomes. So washing it with bright colors does like a super trick. The Vallejo whitewash is meant for like tanks and stuff though. Don't use that on models. It's a different deal. Melty. I mean, you could try it, right? But the Vallejo whitewash is kind of textured. If it's what I'm thinking about, their scale model effect stuff is for whitewash like on tanks. You'd be better off just mixing your own out of titanium white paint for something like what I'm talking about, where it's supposed to be like a light effect as opposed to a paint on a model kind of a thing. The Vallejo whitewash is like for military scale models, the stuff that I have used, right? Somebody might say, oh, no, they have a white wash that's just like a regular wash. But the whitewash is like for washing over, like you paint your tank green and then you, for winter camo, you would whitewash it and it gives you the feel of that kind of hand-painted, quick, watery paint that they would have to put on out in the field. So it chunks up in the crevices a little more than I think you'd want on this. You want it to be very translucent or transparent on this. But I love this model. Great stuff. It says, translucent cloths, any tips for undertones? The biggest thing to remember whenever doing transparent, sheer cloth is to, to me, there's 2 primary methods to do it. Paint it the cloth color and then go back and highlight those areas that touch skin with the skin tone like I see going on right here around the breast line, right? Or paint it all skin, right? And then go back and paint the purple on the areas that don't touch the skin and then glaze the purple over your skin areas. I find that to be the easiest thing for me, because I can get my skin correct for all my highlights and everything and then glaze the clothing color back over the top. But I like what I'm seeing here. Just remember that you'll get the clothing color, the purple, in any of these folds that stand off the skin, right? But I like this. You wouldn't go too bright. So what I'm seeing here on the model looks really good, right? That real dull, desaturated skin tone, right? Because you're going to use that color that comes right after your shadow color on your skin is what you're going to use, which for some people is your base skin tone, but you just don't want to highlight it. This looks perfect all through here, especially like right under the chest. Just a hint of skin tone coming out. You always want the clothing color to be the first thing you see, and then the skin tone looking like it lives underneath it. So the way to do that is paint it that way. Paint your skin tone, glaze it on over the purple, and then once you're done, like make your skin tone a little brighter than you want it, and then glaze your clothing color back over that so you dull it back down again, in this case with the purple. And that's the way that all that really starts to come to life. Small town hobby, some quick tabletop quality for an art show tomorrow. I dig this. I like it. It's just a great model, man. It's really tough to make this model look bad because this model is so great. I love the Tree Lords. But good job on this one. For tabletop. Quick and down and dirty. All right, so Bill Neary, I know you wanted to have me take a look at this. He said you went with a more flowing style over the straight line blends, and this is a lot better. Yeah, see, this is exactly what I was talking about. Bill had asked me behind the scenes on how to get this to have a little bit more depth and some of the detail of the wing to show through, and he had his blends kind of going in a band. Right, so you had dark green, mid-tone green, light green, and then the kind of whitish green. And so it looked kind of like there were stripes of it, you know. It wasn't quite flatlined. He had his blends done, but even with the blends done, you know, this done with the blend evenly around a line, and then the green evenly around a line, and then again and again, takes away from the detailing of the natural aspect of something like a set of wings that have like these crooks and crannies in them. So I said, go back in, do those same blends, but do them like this. Do them where you've got one color fingering into another, right? So you've got the dark green reaching up in here and the bright green and whites reaching back down on the opposite side. So great deal here. I would go through and maybe blend these a little bit more along the edges, but that's up to you. Like, I like what I'm seeing here with kind of the rough outlines going on too. So this is cool, right? But if you wanted it to blend a little bit more, you could definitely come back in and just blend these edges out a little bit. But I almost like the kind of, you know, like, think of it like butterfly wings where you actually have these colors that nearly stand out against one another. I like what I'm seeing here. And now, inside each of these areas, you can just go in and shade the veins. So like for this bright green that you've got, just go in with a little bit of a shade down from this, add this dark green to this green, and get the middle between them, and go in and just kind of pin wash that into the cricks, like down here, this line right here, you know, maybe a little right here. You can try that, and that'll bring out even more of that detail. But you have to now highlight and shade each one of these areas individually. So this bright color will be highlighted and shaded differently than the green. You can't just take the same color and shadow everything. You have to treat, when you do these kind of banded or layered, you know, effects where you go very, very bright, very, very dark, you have to treat each one of these areas as its own entity and shade and highlight it with its own colors, right? But this is looking good. I like this. Duplicate. World Eater, this is a P51 conversion after pre-shade first attempt at this. I'm digging it, man. The pre-shade's looking really good. Looking really good. You got the fuselage. You got really nice on the tips of the wings, right? The front-facing part of the wing. The blend back. I like this a lot. This is looking really good. One thing you can do, I don't know if you know about panel shading on planes and tanks and stuff like this. You're at a stage right now where it would be really good with your airbrush to go in with a very, very kind of diluted black or very, very dark green. I don't know what your top coat is going to be for a P51. Silver? Are you doing silvers on it, or what are you doing? So, but if you go through here, take your airbrush and just start doing with that black, just spray all of these lines between like the, you know, the flaps on the wing, back here, all these flaps, anywhere where you've got those panel lines, just spray them. You need to do a straight line, but it would go over them. It's not meant to be like a panel line. You want this to be dark to where it basically is the darkest right along the line and then blends off to the sides. I did it on our Imperial Fist tank. You know, I don't have it to where I can show you the process, but I can show you the after effect, right? It's the other way of doing kind of, what am I saying? Panel highlighting, like I've been doing on the tanks that I've shown you, right? So I did this tank by laying down the black. I sprayed the black around all of these features. So around the door, down this line, around the panel on the top. You know, when I had it in primer, I did this in gray primer, and then I just sprayed black, very thin black around all this, around all these sections where I want it to look dirty and all that. And then I started layering my yellows up thin over that, so the black still kind of shows through and gives me that grungy, dirty look. Just an age-old scale model technique for getting that kind of grimy feel on vehicles and such. It worked great on airplanes, right? Because you have long, straight lines that go like between the rudder and the tail and you know, the ailerons and everything. And so you can kind of have this dark color show up through there that gives it that kind of greasy look without going too far into being super weathered, right? The other way is how we've been doing our dust tank, where we just do it in the colors, right? This is the same concept. It's just layered with the colors painting the inside of the panels and staying away from the edges so the edges become dark. Just depends. It's kind of like 6 of one, half dozen of the other. They both work. It's just how well you, or how fine of detail you want to do with your airbrushing, because this requires a little bit more fine detail with the airbrush as you pull your highlights in closer and tighter and still get your blends to look good. Because this is all just done by not painting bright colors in certain places. Right? But kind of a very similar effect for getting grit and grimy look onto a model. Video Caesar, yeah, we've been painting that dust Cobra, amphibious Cobra. Oh, look, it's already got the top coat on it. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I like it. Perfect. Light coat of Evil Sun. This is looking great, actually. Yeah, see how your pre-highlight worked? It did a lot of work for you, man. That's perfect. I love seeing this because that's got to get you excited, right? This did exactly, I think, what you were hoping it was going to do, right? Now, looking back, maybe you can see what I was talking about with doing those panel lines and how that would drag that shade into these panel lines for you that would give it kind of a dirty look right from the get-go. But don't do it now. You know, you can just file that one away for later because you can still go back and just pin wash these or something later on and they're going to look great. That pre-highlight just works a number, though, man. That looks fantastic. I love that. So good. The Band-Aid on the dust tank looks so much better now. Yeah, I painted it the other day on stream, Real Ash, man. It sat as just, you know, white bandana cloth for so long. Shaded with mahogany. Oh, yeah, definitely on the backside. Now it's even looking better. Look at you. Nailing it. Yep, dragging that mahogany down in here. Looks really good. That's a drink, people. He just said it. Look at that. World Eater knows his math. He knew I was going to read it. Now you guys have to drink. If you're new here, every time I say mahogany, you have to drink an adult beverage. At least a good sip. A good 2 fingers of an adult beverage. Sorry, not responsible. That plane's going to look fantastic, World Eaters. Shinkai, Graz and Prug, Legion of Doom style. I worked super hard on the skin and makeup, but I feel like I petered out on the rest. I think it's done, but I feel it's incomplete. I don't know that I'm seeing a lot of you saying you're falling down on some of the other stuff. I really love the skin. Great color. I love the paleness. I love how you kept, you know, the underside of the belly, the shading and stuff. I can tell this is really good. You got a little bit of saturation because of the photo, but I can tell your colors are great, right? I really love the makeup. The war paint is great, right? I love the beard, right? You've kept all of the detail on the knot or the braid. Looks really good. The hair on him looks really good. Yeah. I think maybe finding a little bit more value on like the green and the red so they don't look quite as flat because you got such good, kind of variation in the muscles tone and everything everywhere else. But I don't know. I mean, the skin is really the part of the model that stands out on this. Everything else is secondary anyway. So I dig it, man. I think you've done a great job. Throw some basing on that and see what you get. I like it. Dude, I wouldn't want to get hit with whatever he's got. What the hell is this thing on his back? Is this like a war hammer, you know, or a spike hammer thing here? And he's got like a big club on his back? Or is this all part of the same weapon? No, I feel like he's wearing that on his back. All right, gotcha. Gotcha. I dig it. Butt shot. Oh, yeah, it is. It's just a big thing he's wearing on his back. I gotcha. Gotcha. Video Caesar. Great shot. Like a big pile driver. Yeah, it's like, this is what we break down like gates and doors and walls and things with. I get it. I got you. Yeah, looking good. Throw some basing material on here. I think he's done. Current state of things. Any advice? Welcome. No, I dig it. I dig it. Not knowing what your ultimate vision is with it, the only thing that I would say is just stick with what you're doing with your brightness. Make sure that, like on your ailerons as you're going, you got this gold and this black going down. Make sure that you give yourself a good highlight that modulates from this, because this looks so awesome. Going bright to dark on the wing as you go. Go bright to dark on the ailerons as well. Bright to dark on the wing tip. Bright to dark on these, on all of your parts down here. Not as bright. You know, like you've got this bright, I say bright, this brightness of red to this darkness of mahogany shade. Don't go equally bright and dark because these are in the shadowed part of the wing, right? So overall, they will be darker, but modulate them as well. So you'll go to like a black gray on this if you're keeping it black to black. And then on the gold, just a little bit lighter gold shaded back. You know, just keep that same mentality so that you don't detract from this great work you've done with your pre-highlight on the red, because this looks spectacular. I likes it. I'm interested to see where you're going with the red and the black and the gold. That's very interesting to me. I just don't know what you're doing. You think chocolate milk is the best drink, a gift from the gods? If you are what you eat, you're chocolate milk. Okay, random, melty, random. Yeah, worldies, I dig the plane. Good stuff. Goot stuffs. All right, yeah, on the dust tank, somebody mentioned the Band-Aid. We had done a stream not too long back, maybe 2 Fridays ago. I think it was 2 Fridays ago. Somebody to remind me. I think it was 2 Fridays ago. We did a stream where I talked about doing using cloth and Kleenex and paper towels and such to make these bedrolls and details. Like this is cloth bandana. It's cotton bandana cloth, as is this, tied with like embroidery string, and then done Mod Podge all of it to make it solid. We did a couple of really cool things also on dust tanks. Oh God, here we go. I've got the cannons on it. It means it's gonna poop out and blow up everything on my desk. So here's another dust tank, right? And we showed using the cloth bandana. This is just a cheapo $1.99 cotton bandana from Michaels, and now it's stiff as a board, right? Because it's Mod Podged and holds that shape. But we molded it to the top of the tank so that now it acts as a camo tarp for a vehicle, right? And so I showed you guys a couple of weeks back how to do all that stuff. I threw it up on YouTube. So if you want to be able to, I mean, you can imagine like making tarps for scouts, Space Marine scouts, you know, like ghillie suit kind of things. You could make the basis for all of that with these. And I think we did it all with what wound up being like maybe 25 cents worth of material at the end of the day. I venture to say it was very, very inexpensive to make this happen, right? And you can do it like that. We also did one, I think, with gauze, right? Did we do? Yeah, it's over here. Same tank, actually, just without the guns, right? Using medical gauze, you can just get at the drugstore. So this you can actually see through. So this would be more of a camo net, a la World War II style camo net, but same exact principle. Molded it, and then did the Mod Podge on it so that it's all draped over the tank, but it gives it a good weight, right? So it doesn't look like, you know, it actually has weight on there. It drapes and sits on it really nicely. So that's the exact same thing we did, except we just wrapped it around the turret and made a bedroll out of it for the back of the tank there. Just some really cool stuff that comes from like the scale model world back when we didn't have like resin bits and bobs that you could buy to make your models cool. So you just had to make it on your own. But it definitely looks better once it's painted on there, as opposed to sitting there as look like a white handkerchief on the end of the barrel. Still have to blue the barrel. Right. But just some cool added features you can do. Make it fun. Personalize your vehicles. They usually don't give you very good detail-oriented stuff on your vehicles, like tarps and, you know, sometimes they'll give you like a shovel, especially like on Space Marine stuff. You used to get that stupid shovel bit that would go on there, ammo box for Imperial Guard that everybody would always try to buy like 50 of. Video Caesar, the Koenigs something or other. What's that thing called? Koenigsluthor? The big one with the 2 guns? The King, whatever Luther means. King Luther. The Koenigsluthor. They're just big 4-legged tanks as opposed to the 2-legged ones like the Allies have. Yeah, the Koenigsluthor. Video Caesar's like, my drink is all over my monitor. I want that tank, damn it. The one we painted is the Cobra with all of the amphibious stuff going on it, but the Königsluthor is this one with the big guns. It's the Axis tank that is like a big wall. I've cut the top off of this one because this was going to be for my Imperial Guard army. It has a Lehman Russ turret that goes on, and then I was taking these guns off to be sponsored weapons, but I put them back on so everybody could see. But the dust stuff is great, right? Really simple. It comes put together. I mean, you have to shove the guns in there because it's in a smaller box than that. But other than that, the guns just come out. And you can take it apart as you want. But they're kind of fun. If you're in a community where you can do, counts as conversions for your Imperial Guard and stuff, I really like them for that. For like Warhammer 40K, they make better tanks than the Lehman Russ and all of that. If you want to do like a quadrupedal army or AdMech something or other, they got good bits. You can take this bottom section off of here. It's glued, but you can just give it a good twist and pop it right off. And you could use that as a conversion bit for just about anything in Warhammer. And the Fantasy Flight Dust Tactics stuff, usually you can find pretty cheap. For all of that. Furnace, how do you post a whip? You've registered, and when you go to upload section, it won't click. Is it not compatible with Safari on iPhone or iPad? It is. It should work for you, Furnace. If it doesn't, are you sure that you logged in after you registered? Sometimes after the registration process, you need to clear your cache. I don't know how that works on an iPhone. I don't internet on my iPhone very often. I don't have an iPhone, but on my iPad, I don't do it. But I know it will take the uploads from there. But sometimes you have to clear all your cookies or cache, and I'm not sure how that happens on Safari on the mobile. Because sometimes when you go and you register, it counts you as not being logged in to an unregistered site, and it'll keep that, and it'll keep trying to load that page as opposed to once you've logged in, loading the logged in version. That's the long and short of it. We know every now and then some people wind up having problems being able to upload, but the worst case we have is if you just can't get it to work, I can delete your account and you can re-register, and sometimes that'll fix it. I hate that that's the answer, but that's the only answer that I found. But yeah, I don't ever use the Twitch app or the link in the Twitch app thing. That probably will pull out some browser off of the side. If you're watching it, you probably have to use like out of Chrome or Safari, just actually put the link into the browser itself. Band guy selling watches, did he say again? I don't think he said anything again. He didn't put a link. The big boy F said, here, use Frankie10 and use my discount code. But he didn't put a link, did he? I was watching. If big boy F is still out there, we prefer you to not spam us with that stuff. But he didn't put a link, so I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. Well, anyway, it is time for us to quit. That's the end of our Friday night. We'll find somebody to host off to. I hope you have learned something tonight. We got a lot done on this steel. I'm really digging where it's headed. We got a really good look out of it. Now I've just got to figure out my final kind of coloration and to darken it up. Like I said, we're going to get the front to look more like this angle from the back where our brightness is much more reduced. I don't want it to be super shiny on the steel on the outside. So I'll just reduce it down a little bit on these areas, but we've pushed it pretty good. I'm feeling really good about how it's shining on there. Match the gold up to it a little bit, do a little bit of work there. And I think we're off and running, and I can do the other side, question mark. And then once all the non-metallic is done, then I can start working on the horns and finish the skin and all the other stuff. Because I don't know how high or how bright I want the skin to be until I see all of this around it done as I am going to get it. So step by step, you know the drill. That's how we do it. But thanks for hanging out with me. I hope that this has been good stuff. I know we've got a lot of questions we answered. Thank you so much. As always, thank you so much for the support, the subs, the resubs, the follows. If you've been lurking in the background and you happen to like what you've seen, please hit that follow button. We are on the road to 10,000 followers. We're getting close. I think we're closing in on like 9K. And our goal during the course of this year is to hit 10,000 followers. So go bribe your family members and whatever friends you have and tell them to come give us a follow. We're not too shameful. to say just come follow us. But yeah, thank you guys so much for hanging with me. It's a pleasure. Like literally, I can only say it like that. I love spending this painting time with you guys, my best friends on the internet. Sit around and watch paint dry with me, and tell bad jokes and ask great questions. So wouldn't have it without you. Thank you so much. Make sure to check out slowfusegaming.com. Like I said, the deck cords, the fine detail brushes that you saw me painting with today, we just released those on the site. They are brand new. We had a lot of sales before the show, hoping that through the weekend that keeps on going. And yeah, find that on there. We will have long wicks. The Kolinsky Sables will be back in stock, hopefully by the end of next week. If not, then the week after. They're in assembly right now. And we assemble all those stateside, so I don't have to worry about a lot of international shipping on those. So as soon as we get done assembling the Kolinskys, they will be back in stock. Yeah, so thank you so much. Make us your hobby store, please. Thanks. All right, man. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Don't do anything we wouldn't do. We will be back on Tuesday, Dose Day, for our 2-hour Tuesday, same time, 2 p.m. Pacific. We will see you then. Have a great weekend. Bye.